Oh, she's exactly.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I've been joined by the Honorable Council Members Jose Rizar and Mitchell Englander. We have a full agenda today. One, I appreciate your patience. We have several items we need to cover. But before we go there, I will ask you to please provide the courtesy of allowing an individual to state their opinions and respect their point of view. The clapping, the booing, and everything else that goes with a charged environment like this one only takes away from our ability to be able to absorb the facts and the information. We know it's very emotional issues, but I would ask you to just have a little bit more sense of decorum and respect for others' opinions. That being said, when you come up to the microphone, give us your name and address. Some of you have written very eloquent letters, and I would hope you can get to the point of your statement. You might find yourself at this microphone and then realize that the person before you said exactly what you wanted to say, or you find yourself with a loss of words because there's nothing else you can add. You can just say, I agree with the previous speaker and or speakers, and we can move on the committee. So I appreciate very much your cooperation in this process. I'd like to do is, my colleagues, if you are okay, go through the agenda and see what we could move, receive and file, and then we'll go to our commissioners, and then we'll take it one step at a time. So at this juncture, seeing no cards, if we can receive and file item 2 in as much as the nominee resigned. Okay, that's a second. That's approved. Number 5, seeing no cards, we can move on consent. Number 6, seeing no cards on consent. Number 7, we can continue in plum to September 11th, and hopefully in council September 18th. Number 9, that we can continue in plum to September 11th, and in council September 25th. Item number 10, we can continue in plum to October 2nd, and hopefully in council on October 16th. So we have agreement on those items? Yes. Okay, that'll be the action of this committee. Before we get started on the items, will our director, Michael LeGrand, do you have a presentation you'd like to make at this time?
Yes, I have a brief report.
You have a brief report from the planning director.
Thank you. Michael LeGrand for the record. I'd like to report we've got released the San Pedro Community Plan this past week, so it's out for public circulation. Really excited to see that plan move forward. Our staff's done a very good job working with the community and the stakeholders of the San Pedro community on trying to help revitalize our downtown, as well as put in some preservation measures in other parts of the city. And so we're excited to see that plan move forward and looking forward to the next plans coming down the pipeline. In addition, the department's been very busy working on some very large projects. We had our public hearing for the NBC Universal project come before us last week at a hearing officers hearing. That'll be coming before this committee in the next coming months, and so we'll be excited to bring that forward to the Planning Commission as well as the City Council, and we'll have lots of public debate as that goes through the process. Also, an update on the stadium proposal. The staff in our major project section has been working very hard with the downtown stadium proposal and event center and modernization of the convention center. And so we'll be reporting back to ad hoc committee the council's ad hoc committee on our progress on that. Tentatively speaking, that'll be going before the planning commission in late September. And we'll see that project moving forward through the approval process at that time and be before the city council shortly. In addition, our staff has released a number of significant environmental impact reports, and we'd be happy to go over those with you at a later date. Also, we've been doing a number of trainings around CEQA and starting to gear up to provide some further analysis and looks into possible changes to the way we handle our CEQA internally in the city and moving forward. And our transportation element of the general plan has been moving forward very well. We're currently working on the mobility element and doing a number of outreach meetings to get people's idea on transportation in Los Angeles and how to take the most advantage of our investment in rail. And we look forward to bringing that plan forward to the council in the next coming year. I'm available for any questions, and we'll be here to represent the cases.
Any questions for our director? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. We have with us some guests who are being considered for reappointments for the Harbor Area Planning Commission. We have with us Mr. Philip Trigas. Please come to the microphone, sir. So one, I want to thank you for your service. And as a reappointment, you've become much more experienced in this role.
Yes, I have.
So how many years have you been a commissioner?
I believe it's going
You can move the microphone closer to you.
Sorry. I believe it's been close to 3 years now,
3 years.
approximately.
Great. And you still have the energy to do this?
Yes, it's been a great honor and a joy sitting behind the dais on the other side from where I'm normally sitting. Yes.
Well, fantastic. One, I want to say thank you for your contribution to the city. This is your time that you are providing the citizenry of this great city, and for that I thank you, because I know it can be difficult during these planning commission discussions and debates, and the fact that you are offering your stewardship means a lot to us. So I would like to recommend your reappointment. And colleagues, any questions or observations?
Just a quick observation and statement that I wanted to say. In looking at your resume, and I know most of you out there don't have a copy of this, but it's pretty incredible. The awards and accolades and honors and publications and community service and all the things you've done around architecture and everything in the community is just, it's unparalleled. I mean, this is really impressive.
Thank you.
It's refreshing because I've made the statement many times that unfortunately we appoint commissioners for the wrong reasons. And we look for expertise on certain commissions, and this one in particular, which is critically important, and you have to understand architecture and planning matters and land use, and this resume is really incredible and all the things you've done. So I just wanted to compliment you on your public service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will recommend approval, and we'll see you in council. Madam Clerk, do you have, yes, you do have a question.
I just have a general question. You studied both in Mexico and the United States in architecture.
Yeah.
Did you find that the approach to architecture is the same in both countries? Or you could say that different programs here have different approaches, but generally, was there some large differences, or is it all the same?
I would say definitely in Mexico City there was a strong focus on urban planning, obviously for issues that you're confronted with there. They still have the same joy of form making and producing beautiful buildings as we do here. And I was also fortunate enough to study here in Los Angeles at SciArc, which has become one of the top institutions too in the world. So it's also been a joy studying here as well.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We will be recommending you for reappointment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, and our next guest we have with us for the North Valley Area Planning Commission, Ms. Veronica Padilla.
Good afternoon.
Hi, this is a reappointment, correct?
Yes.
I remember when you first got appointed, they were questioning your experience, your exposure to the discipline. How have you been since then?
You sure challenged me the first time I met you, which was good because I take this very seriously and it's a great honor. So I think I've grown and been able to provide the best projects for our community and ensure that it benefit economically, and also our community is in favor, and try to mitigate whatever issues we need to. So.
Great. So you're ready for another round?
Yes. I thought about it for a bit because my job keeps me so busy, but I think this is a great privilege to be part of the commission, and I'm learning a lot and been able to, I think, contribute to really important projects in our area. So yeah, I want to continue.
So with your master's in urban planning from UCLA, you've been able to apply some of your theories, some of your concepts, but in reality, when the rubber hits the road, that doesn't always pan out.
True.
What is written in books. So is there a project or an experience you could share with us that reflected how you needed to take a risk and or make assertions that made a fundamental change to a project?
I remember two. I remember one was like a family who wanted to build something in the back, an extra bedroom for their family, and the zoning administrator was against this, but the commission together, we really worked together to find the findings to go against it and be able to provide the family this needed bedroom. And I remember their tears and how happy and grateful they were to us. So I do remember that very clearly. And I also remember a 7-Eleven case. I wasn't so successful. I didn't want the 7-Eleven coming in because it was in a neighborhood that I grew up in. But I think at the end we were able to come up with a consensus to provide a better project.
Well, thank you, Ms. Padilla. I do know that folks who come from communities that don't always have access to educational opportunities, and to have someone rise from these neighborhoods and be in the position you're in with your master's is truly appreciated. And I thank you for taking the risk, because it does take some courage to do that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Councilor, any other comments?
Yes, we have, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your service as well to the city and to the people, the residents of Los Angeles. And just to ask you one question, we have a matter before us pertaining to USC, and you're from UCLA, so how should we vote? No, I'm kidding.
All right, Vince.
Congratulations. Oh, thank you.
All right. He was kidding, folks. He was kidding.
See her outside. No.
Any comments, observations?
No, but we had a previous commissioner who went to both, and I asked him the same question. He said UCLA, though. That's.
Okay.
I'm just stating facts. I'm not being judgmental.
All right, guys.
You have a tough challenge today.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Padilla. I would like to recommend you, and I'm assuming the committee, we're all there. And I appreciate, again, your service. And when do we see her in front of council?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Padilla is scheduled for council August 28th.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Roberta, I've been running right along. I haven't asked you to introduce anything yet. Okay, so.
I defer to you.
All right, so sorry I got on a roll here. Roberta, next item?
Yeah, item 4, council members, is a action from the City Planning Commission relative to the Chinatown ICO.
Okay, if you have the staff come forward, please. And we did have this item in the last Land Use Management Committee where we closed public comment. And today we are focused on the substance of the issue, and we give us some background, and we move forward.
Good afternoon, council members. Connie Polini-Tipton, along with Nicholas Marisic from City Planning, here to present City Planning Commission's recommendations on the proposed interim control ordinance for Chinatown.
Great.
Good afternoon, Nick Marisic with City Planning. This started on March 23rd of this year when the City Council passed a motion, it's Council File 12-0382, requesting the City Planning Department and the City Attorney prepare and present an Interim Control Ordinance, or ICO, to temporarily prohibit the issuance of demolition, building, or any applicable permits for the establishment and operation of new formula retail uses that are 20,000 square feet or larger for portions of Chinatown in the Central City North Community Plan. City Council approval is required for the adoption of an ICO, and state law requires a 4/5 vote of the Council to pass. The ordinance has been prepared and forwarded to you with the Commission action that addresses the issues outlined in the motion, should the committee recommend approval and the Council ultimately adopt the ICO. In the ordinance, staff has clarified the definition of formula retail uses that would be restricted under the ICO. There is an exception that would allow existing businesses operating within the ICO area as of the effective date to be able to expand in size or move their location during the timeline of the ICO. Per the City Attorney, if the committee would like to move forward, staff recommends a technical amendment be incorporated. The term of the ICO should be amended to be 45 days with a possible extension of up to 22 months and 15 days to align with state regulations in this matter. And on July 12, 2012, after public comment and discussion, the City Planning Commission voted 5-2 to disapprove and recommend that the Council not adopt the ICO. The vast majority of speakers addressing the Commission spoke in regards to a particular project that is not being considered as part of the action on the ICO. The Commission's discussion focused largely on the question of urgency in this matter and on the types of stores that would be affected under the temporary moratorium, namely grocery stores such as Ralph's, Walgreens, Trader Joe's, 99 Ranch Market, and associated department stores, furniture, and home improvement stores, and hardware stores. The Commission was concerned about preserving Chinatown's unique community character and noted that mom-and-pop stores in the area are currently struggling. However, some commissioners reflected that the ICO would not necessarily preserve community character because smaller chain stores, such as restaurants, coffee shops, and retail stores, would be exempted due to their smaller size. A majority of the Commission felt that an emergency measure was not necessary at this time in order to proceed with the study of such issues. If the committee wishes to move forward today and disapprove the CPC recommendation, we have understand that the Council has the necessary substitute findings to proceed, and these should be entered into the record in order to move the ordinance forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
That concludes the presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, colleagues, I want first thank you for your patience. We had public comment previous meeting. We closed it. And I appreciate the update from the staff. I know this is a contentious issue. My focus is public safety. My focus is how we preserve the historic fabric of this great city. If we think back in another era, back when Olvera Street was being considered for rehabilitation, it actually was an alley. And that alley was transformed into what you see today. And it received historic status. It maintained a certain cultural destination reflecting the history of this great city. And today it exists because we took the time to preserve its character, its nature, its vibrancy. Today I see Chinatown in many parallels in terms of how we see our city as the destination. It's almost like the Ellis Island of the West. We have many Asian Pacific Islanders who come into this country. Chinatown is home not only to Chinese, but to Vietnamese, Cambodian. It's an amazing array of cultures, but Chinatown and its architecture and historic fabric has been able to maintain that sense of community because of the built-out environment where it does translate its architecture, its history, and its culture. So it is, for those two variables, one, public safety and how we understand the issues of circulation, parking, look at the notion of new developments like a brand new high school that was built across the street from an existing store, and when that store was built, there was never a real analysis of public safety, traffic, circulation that today is now a concern of mine. I've had an elderly woman actually been hit by a bus across the street trying to get to her residency. Today we have hundreds and hundreds of kids during peak hours on those corners, And these are very key issues. So when you combine the historic element, the architecture, the cultural element, along with these new uses, we as a city, I think, are obligated to take steps to embrace our diversity, celebrate our cultures, but also look at how we improve circulation and the built-out environment to enhance quality of life. We do not have a CRA anymore. The state was very thorough in how it took our money away, our local money, and prevented us from able to have a staff who typically would review these projects and look at these issues, but now it's gone. So that being said, colleagues, I'd like to read into the record the following that could be supported and does speak to the issues that I just addressed. And that is that Chinatown, this is a vibrant community made up of a diverse resident population, a thriving small business sector. It's a unique cultural, historic characteristics, make it an important asset to the city. Chinatown is characterized by unique merchant base and historic and culturally significant landmarks that attracts tourists locally and from around the world. The city should preserve and protect Chinatown from large format retail uses that are incompatible with its distinct character and threaten the diverse retail base and unique character of this community. If I might add, many jobs are thriving because of the presence of the small and medium-sized businesses that we find in places like Chinatown. So for the record, State Government Code 65858, I'd like to read to the record the following findings. 1, the immediate threat, permits have been issued for a formative retail use larger than 20,000 square feet in Chinatown, and additional permits could be issued for similar uses. If the city does not act, these large formative retail uses will endanger the viability of Chinatown's small businesses and threaten the unique and historic character of the neighborhood. Secondly, public health, safety, and welfare issues. The historic, cultural, and economic integrity of Chinatown is characterized by existing small business community in the area. The viability of that community is currently at risk due to development pressures resulting in the issuance of permits for large formative retail uses in the area. And the city needs time to develop permanent regulations that preserve and enhance existing neighborhoods serving retail uses. The last point, the proposed ordinance will help ensure that the character and scale of the established small business community is maintained until a permanent ordinance can be adopted. So with these findings in mind and stated for the record, if my colleagues would support me on this, to disapprove the Planning Commission action and request the Planning Department, in consultation with the City Attorney, to prepare and present the Chinatown Interim Control Ordinance and adopt the findings of approval. So I read the findings, the directive. I'd like to open up the floor to my colleagues if any discussions or questions you might want to ask. And the floor is yours. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I recognize council members' local planning wishes that they work with the local community. So I will support Mr. Reyes on this matter. However, I do have a few questions, and one is, how long would this ICO go on for? It's an interim control ordinance, so it's a temporary measure. How long do we have something in the code that says how long they last, or just generally, how long would it take?
Nick Marisich, City Planning. The City Attorney has informed us to follow the State Government Code, Section 65858, which specifies an initial period of 45 days, and that can be extended beyond that up to the total period could be a maximum of 2 years. So it's an initial 45 days, and then with extensions, the total time period could equal 2 years.
The total time period is 2 years, and then it expires after 2 years?
That's correct.
Okay. And does this have a hardship exemption?
Yes, the hardship exemption process is written into the draft ordinance for council to act on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. We've had some problems in the past when we have ICOs and the hardship exemption. The most recent has been our ICO with medical marijuana dispensaries, and it seems like some dispensaries easily applied through that hardship exemption where we had to come back to council to delete that provision of the ICO. Have you found other similar problems with other ICOs in the hardship exemption language, or was it just the medical marijuana ordinance?
To my knowledge, we haven't had a lot of ICOs in recent years, but it's something we could talk about with the city attorney in terms of drafting the ordinance, if that's the action of the committee, and weigh those as we put forth a draft for council.
I just want to add that if we are proposing to put an ICO, but in other instances that was a large loophole where the rule was really swallowed up by its exceptions, we should look at that to see if that works or not in all ICOs. It's just a broader issue we should be aware of. Sometimes it's not effective, or we don't get the effect we would like to see. And finally, one thing that I wanted to understand when I heard the IC was coming back to council was my understanding that there was already a retail store or a formula retail use that was approved and received their permits. So, and now we have this ICO. So does this apply to that or not? I'm
Our
trying
understanding
to
is
figure
that
that out.
this would not apply to any project that's already received permits. That's our understanding.
I'm sorry.
It would not apply to projects already in receipt of their permits.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman? Okay. So I would like to put this for a vote and ask support from my colleagues, Councilman. That's yes, Councilman? Okay, so that's 2-1, and that'll be the action of this committee. Okay? Are we done?
Thank you.
All right. Roberto, the drum roll for some might call this the main event.
This is the last item, council member, item 8. It's action from the City Planning Commission relative to a general plan amendment, a zone change, a height district change, and a code amendment to add the USC specific plan. And if the project is located within the boundaries of CD 1, 8, and 9.
Okay, we have the staff come on up. And as they're coming up, first I want to thank everyone for their patience. This is a very, very important project, and you do have a sense of communication that will be enhanced, hopefully, through this discussion. Today, to be very clear, we will have the presentation from the staff. We'll have the presentation from the applicant, USC, and we'll have public comment. And at this juncture, once public comment is completed, we will close public comment, absorb the information, and we will continue this item for another date. But at this point, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is to introduce the project, introduce our understandings of its complexities, and move forward by continuing this item to another date. But I want to make sure that we are here to listen to everyone's concern. So that being said, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Faisal Roble, and I'm the Senior City Planner for the USC Specific Plan Project. We present to you today the USC Specific Plan and Associated Development Agreement, which has this long suffix that has just been read into the record, and I will not repeat that. We are asking today the committee to approve the recommendations of the City Planning Commission of May 10, 2012. What we will present to you this afternoon, staff will present to you a brief description of the CPC recommended specific plan and the accompanying public benefit package. That's the development agreement. This is the first time in the history of the university where public and private efforts are unified to realize the university as a place that is pleasant, memorable, and inspiring to walk, shop, and mingle. Therefore, planning department is determined to do it right. My staff, Rogelio and Michelle, would give you a detailed description of the specific plan and the public benefit package as recommended by CPC. In the interest of simplicity, I'll just outline what you would expect from us. Rogelio, who is the supervisor of the project, would give you a brief overview of the components of the specific plan and the public hearing that went into the public process in order to get input from all the stakeholders of the project. Michelle Levy, who is the project coordinator, would give you a detailed information as much as possible. In the interest of time, also sometimes limit her detailed description of the project. That's the specific plan. She will also go over with you the public benefit package and mostly highlight the issues that we feel have received public attention. And she will also introduce into the record the necessary technical corrections to the specific plan. With that, I will welcome Rogelio, and then we will just proceed with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Faisal. Good afternoon, council members. Rogelio Flores from the Planning Department. We have prepared a very brief PowerPoint overview of the project. As we all know, this has obviously been a very intensive outreach process during the course of this project. In the monitors behind you, we outline the extent of the public outreach process, and obviously there has been great interest in the community throughout the entire course of this project. You will note from this slide that there has been a variety of stakeholders involved and very active participants. So you can see that there have been both small group meetings as well as larger meetings, some of which were attended by hundreds of interested members of the community. And we do believe that we have accomplished a very robust and engaging outreach process through the course of this plan. The public input we have received has engaged a very wide variety of subjects that include environmental impacts, CEQA, student housing and affordable housing, urban design, as well as a variety of public benefits that are associated with the development agreement. All of the input that we've heard played a key component of discussion at the CPC hearing, which took place a couple months ago on May 10 of this year. The Commission then crafted recommendations that we are now presenting to you today, and it is evident today as well that there's a great deal of public interest in this project. Next slide. Very quickly covering the boundaries as well as the sub-areas involved in the specific plan, again projected behind you, there's a map. The specific plan boundary areas consist of 4 sub-areas. Sub-area 1A is the core campus, which is the existing historic core of the university. Then sub-area 1B is the recently or relatively recently developed Galen Center parcel. Then there's a parcel just east of the 110 freeway, which contains ancillary uses that support the university, such as the garage facility, as well as other ancillary office uses. And of course, the focus of the specific plan that is being brought before you is sub-area 3, which is just north of Jefferson Boulevard, which is an east-west transect. And most of the proposed development is going to affect that particular parcel. As foreseen by the university, the proposed development would add a substantial amount of net new student housing to the area. It would provide community-serving retail services, including a full-service grocery store and sit-down restaurants, as well as publicly accessible open space and an enhanced and activated pedestrian realm. The specific plan, as was approved by the CPC, provides the regulatory framework to ensure that the proposed development results in orderly and appropriate construction and development of the campus and surrounding and its connectivity to surrounding properties. So that's a very quick overview. And the boundaries, again, Exposition Boulevard to the south as a general boundary, Vermont to the west, And again, the 110 freeway is the general boundary to the east for the specific plan. So now Michelle Levy, the project manager for this project, will take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. Michelle Levy with the Planning Department. Just to give you kind of a visual to associate with the project, here we're looking at 4 very telling points of view. This is looking southward towards the main campus. The high-rise in the background is existing student housing on the main campus at Jefferson and Hoover. Next, we have a view of Vermont Avenue. This is the western edge of the campus. Looking from this vantage point, the campus would be on the right-hand side of the street. This is looking at the newly opened exposition station at Flower Street. This is well within a short walk to the campus. And this is an image of Subarea 2. This is east of the 110 freeway. This area generally houses the university's warehouse uses, what they term their back-of-house uses, so archives and administrative functions. This is immediately abutting the 110 freeway. And this is really at the heart of the specific plan area. This is the intersection of Jefferson and Hoover Street. And you can tell from this photo that it's heavily used by pedestrians and bicyclists. This is one of the few diagonal crosswalks throughout the city. And this serves as a major gateway to the university. So what we're presenting to you today is the City Planning Commission's recommendation. It's a little bit hard to read on this slide, in fact, very hard to read, so I'll just go over briefly what the Planning Commission recommended. The Commission recommended the adoption of the specific plan and the development agreement, along with the required zone and height district changes and general plan amendments that would be needed to effectuate this project, meaning the correct zoning to ensure a mix of uses in these sub-areas. A number of general plan amendments were also needed to effectuate the specific plan, particularly to accommodate the floor area ratio and mix of uses contemplated in sub-area 3. General plan amendments would also be needed to redesignate streets, such as Jefferson Boulevard, to accommodate the bicycle lane that's proposed in the specific plan, as well as the downgrade of McClintock Avenue to create a pedestrian thoroughfare. Finally, the Planning Commission deliberated at length over the urban design and streetscape components of the specific plan. The Commission required that USC return to the Commission with a refined set of urban design guidelines and streetscape plan, a concept streetscape plan for Jefferson Boulevard as part of the specific plan regulations. So very quickly, this map simply demonstrates the existing zoning and land uses in sub-area 3. The specific plan would modify these zones and land uses to accommodate the anticipated growth of the university, and also sets limitations and restrictions on development to ensure the compatibility. And I'll cover the specifics shortly. Here's a close-up view of sub-area 3. Now it's all red, meaning that this would accommodate the appropriate mix of uses that could not otherwise be accommodated with the existing zoning. It would transform this to a neighborhood district, from a neighborhood district to a community center in the general plan framework, and it would allow community commercial land use in sub-area 3 that would accommodate the housing and commercial uses that are anticipated. So a quick summary of the project that's before you today. The specific plan would allow 5 million square feet of net new development, just over 5 million in fact, in a mix of uses. Sub-area 3, known as University Village, will see the greatest change with this specific plan. It would include student housing, academic and university facilities, open space and retail uses that could include a grocery store, restaurants, a hotel, movie theater, and parking facilities. So clearly, this is a major project with a huge mix of uses anticipated. And importantly, the specific plan provides the urban design guidelines that will ensure that the buildings are designed appropriately and respect the surrounding community. So some of the key urban design factors, this shows you just a conceptual layout of the open spaces that are proposed. So you can see really how this plan is linking to the north the residential community, to the south, the specific plan area, the core campus, USC's main campus. It's also linking east-west. That's accommodated through specific regulations in the plan requiring paseos and open space thoroughfares for pedestrians. That's how we're accomplishing those linkages. As well, the large blocks are going to be broken up into smaller blocks. These will be scaled down to pedestrians, addressing building volumes and massing, making sure that we don't have one large monolithic project, but rather a series of smaller buildings. We're also tackling architectural style, making sure that, given that this is a continuation of the campus, it's still sensitive in terms of its architectural style and form to the surrounding community. And specifically to the community to the north. These are low-density residential uses, and there are provisions in the specific plan that address building forms requiring buildings to step down towards these uses. Here are some images that illustrate what some of these buildings could look like in the future. This would be an interior view of the University Village development. And just sort of recapping the Planning Commission's recommendations on the development agreement, the CPC decision and the benefits that were proposed in detail are already on the public record. I'm just going to quickly touch on and highlight the key components of the development agreement. So the Planning Commission increased funding for affordable housing programs from $2 million to $8 million. These are programs that will generate or provide provisions for protecting existing affordable housing units. There's an array of programs in the development agreement. USC has also committed to providing a minimum of 1,000 net new student beds in Sub-Area 3 as part of this project. Another commitment is the construction of a new fire station off-site, not within the specific plan area. USC has also agreed to buy out up to 4 alcohol licenses from the surrounding community. They've agreed to provide $350,000 for parks, for programming at public parks, and for acquisition of new park space in the community. As far as pedestrian amenities, the specific contributions are streetscape median on Vermont Avenue, that's what's currently proposed, and improvements on Jefferson Boulevard from Royal to Hope Street. Those improvements are things like street trees, sidewalk repair, possibly some street furniture, pedestrian lighting, those sorts of improvements. USC has also agreed to 2 additional bicycle lane segments on Jefferson Boulevard, in addition to the segment fronting on the main campus. USC will construct bicycle lanes running west of the campus from Vermont to Western, and east of the campus all the way to Hope Street. And then I know this is an important provision to many people in the room today. This is a local hiring provision and job training program for local hiring. Just a quick overview. We started out the presentation discussing the outreach that's been done today, and we just want to end it by covering the main comments that we've heard, both in support of the project and some of the concerns. And as Rogelio had mentioned, the public process continues to evolve. This is just a quick summary of the issues that we've heard so far. Many felt that the development will create much needed economic growth and physical improvements in the community. Many were looking forward to seeing increased housing opportunities for students and a new variety of housing options. Many of the comments spoke to the much needed community amenities, basic things like full-service grocery store, sit-down restaurant establishments, the need for more open space and public gathering spaces, and many were very taken by the opportunity to create a transit-oriented development that also offers its own sort of amenities in terms of creating public gathering spaces and really energizing Jefferson Boulevard. Comments or issues that we heard. We heard concerns about an ongoing loss of affordable housing in the community. We heard many comments reflect that there are development pressures from the student community, that affordability of new student housing is a serious issue that ought to be considered, that there are opportunities to create a robust local hiring and job training program through this development agreement. There were concerns that redevelopment of University Village would cause the potential displacement of local businesses, and that provisions need to be included to protect those local businesses or offer supportive services to those businesses. That many felt there was a need to expand community improvements west of the campus to the communities to the west of Vermont Avenue, that alcohol sales continue to be an issue in this community, and that should be looked at very closely. Many felt that the preservation of historic resources ought to be considered beyond the specific plan area, that bicyclist and pedestrian safety should be made paramount in the specific plan and in the development agreement, and there were some comments raised with respect to the environmental impacts of the project. So today we would like to also enter into the public record, and these have officially been entered with the city clerk, some technical corrections on the specific plan. These are changes that we have discovered in light of the CPC's determination. We have a few technical corrections on the specific plan. We would like to include a placeholder for implementation procedures to ensure that street improvements could be implemented on individual projects coming through the specific plan process. We have a few minor corrections with respect to graphics. We are updating the land use table on page 11 of the specific plan to reflect the latest information relative to a site plan review case that was recently approved on the campus. This change to the allowable land use would actually reduce the total allowable square footage in the specific plan. And we are inserting a clarification that existing industrial uses will be deemed by right and should be allowed to remain in sub-area 2. Some other outstanding issues that we would like to bring to your attention today, these are items in the development agreement. Similar to the specific plan, we would like to present for your consideration the addition of procedural language for implementing street improvements on Jefferson Boulevard. Again, these are the off-site street improvements that are beyond the specific plan area. These are additional benefits proposed in the DA, and we need procedural language, and we need to identify triggers to implement those programs. We would also like to bring to your attention a letter that was submitted on behalf of USC by their representative offering additional funding for street lighting and for street trees west of the campus on Jefferson Boulevard. This letter was submitted the day of the CPC meeting. However, the Planning Commission inadvertently omitted these items from their motion, and so we bring that for you today. Finally, the fire station that's proposed in the development agreement, this is the off-site fire station. There is an MOU in progress. The CLA's office is taking the lead on preparing that MOU and negotiating on behalf of the city. At this point, the construction cost is projected at over $10 million, and this is in conflict with the precise language of the development agreement as it stands right now. The development agreement is capped at $10 million for the fire station, and the cost is already projected to be over $10 million. So that's just something we would like to have you reflect on today. We're bringing it forward for information purposes only. And another bit of information that has been brought to our attention is that with respect to the Vermont street median that's being proposed in the development agreement, it's been determined by the Bureau of Engineering that this may be infeasible. They have already studied the possibility of placing a median on Vermont, and they've preliminarily determined that it's not feasible at this time. And so you may wish to take that under advisement as you
Just for the
review
sake of clarity, say infeasible because physically it doesn't fit, or for other reasons?
My understanding was because of the configuration of driveways on Vermont Avenue, it was deemed to be physically infeasible.
Okay.
And that concludes our presentation. We're available for questions.
So how many years of work does that encapsulate?
Just the last 2 years of my life.
All right. Just want to make sure we appreciate the moment here. Okay, are there other departments that would like to come to the microphone and give us your input, knowing that many departments have been involved? We had Public Works, Department of Transportation. So if there is a comment for the record that you'd like to share, that would be the time.
Mr. Chair, council members, my name is Greg Vandergriff. I'm with the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering, Central District. I oversee the B permits for construction in the public right-of-way. In reviewing recently some of the issues involved in the Development Service Agreement, there are some amounts thrown out here regarding the cost of these improvements that are recommended. Some of those numbers do not seem to adequately address the scope of work that's described. Without having a set of plans and quantity takeoffs to review, it's hard for us to comment and evaluate exactly what those costs would be. The other thing that I've not been able to, we've not had sufficient information to address is whether or not infrastructure improvements are also required for the sanitary sewer and for the storm drains in the area. Having worked on plans in the past, we've had problems with flooding in the streets, and those are areas that need to be addressed.
Flooding in the streets impacted by the proposed plan?
By the proposed development.
Okay. Anything else? I'm not that I want more, I'm just making sure you were thorough.
I think that covers the highlights.
Okay. All right. So Department of Transportation, I understand you might like to add observations or comments.
Michelle Mallory, Senior Bicycle Coordinator, Department of Transportation. I just wanted to address the issue of bicycle safety on campus and opportunities that I think are being missed. The bike lanes on Jefferson are certainly a beginning. I've heard the figure of $50,000 thrown around for those improvements. We don't think that's adequate to address the cost of actual implementation of the bicycle lane on Jefferson. $50,000 per mile is a general figure that's included in the current bicycle plan that does not include staff, design, environmental, or removal of the current striping. So we need to adjust the costs on the Jefferson bike lane without question. There are two other projects that we've looked at out in that area. We had a workshop called Think Bike last fall with Dutch designers and community in the area to address additional safety problems out there. We have a significant problem between Orchard and McClintock with university students who are traveling from north of the campus and using Orchard to come in, and they're riding their bicycles against traffic. We'd like to propose a two-way bicycle path on the sidewalk parallel to the sidewalk to bring the students to McClintock to the signalized intersection there. So there's an opportunity that we need a little right-of-way to be able to do that, and we need a participation of the university to help with that. And then one other project that came out of that workshop is a redesign of University Avenue, which is a paper street. It's currently city property that the university maintains. Currently, it's a free-for-all for bikes, peds, and skateboards, and it leads to that scramble intersection at the corner of Hoover and Jefferson. It's really difficult to transverse if you stand in the middle of it. It's like standing in the middle of the ocean at the moment. But we'd like to work with the university on design as a part of this project, redesigning and re-implementing that project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for, yes, we have one more question.
Just a quick question. On the bike lanes, the proposed bike lanes, do you actually lose any lanes of traffic with those or parking?
It would, first of all, we need design. We don't have design and we don't know what it's going to take for removal. My guesstimate out there would be it would require a removal of a travel lane, but we won't really know that until we get into preliminary design. Some of that could be included in the environmental process.
And how many lanes are there now?
There are currently 2 lanes each direction and parking on both sides.
So with 2 lanes and parking on both sides, to lose an entire lane of traffic in each direction.
We could lose one lane of traffic in either direction, but probably most appropriate would be the removal of parking on the north side of the or on the south side, on the campus side. And that's been proposed by the university as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I do know I want to thank the housing department folks that are here, but we're going to hold off on some questions. So I do want to hear from the applicant first. I just want the departments to give their full presentation. We do have CDD. The CDD, Community Development Department, is there a rep here that would want to present or speak to the committee? I first want to thank you because I know USC has been very, very cooperative in working with the whole dynamic of creating jobs, and I know you are a major component of making that happen, so I want to thank you for your hard work.
Well, thank you, Chair. Jaime Pacheco Orozco with Community Development Department. I'm the Director of Workforce Development Services. We strongly support the local hiring provision. We currently have a number of projects that have a local hiring agreement in place, community benefits agreements in place, and we would support anything that would allow for local residents to be hired within the project activities, both during construction and subsequent to construction and permanent jobs. We've worked with USC on looking at this local hire provision, so we're currently in negotiations with them on that.
So the policies and protocols that you are now assessing have you've been working together with the USC hand in hand to understand the potential of creating that relationship?
Yes.
And how long has that discussion been going on?
I could not comment with any sense of accuracy. I would say at least 1.5 years.
Good. Okay, so it's been ramping up.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other departments would like to come to the microphone to make sure I don't overlook anybody? All right, we're fine. Next, I'd like to ask USC would like to give a presentation, and I want to thank you for your patience, your intestinal fortitude, and going through this process. I know there are a lot of issues, but I want to thank USC. It is a major contributor to our economy in the region, as an institution. It's one of the original educational facilities back when the city begins its history. So longevity impacts have been phenomenal. Congratulations on the Olympics. I think USC had one of the highest number of athletes that were awarded gold medals. So congratulations to them. So that being said, Mr. Tom Sayles, like to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes and members of the committee. My name is Tom Sayles, and I am USC's Senior Vice President for University Relations. And thank you for the opportunity today to address you on our specific plan. First, I'd like to thank the staff of the Planning Commission, the Department of Planning, as well as your staff for all the work they've done. We know they put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours on this project. I want to start by talking a little bit about who is USC? Who are we? We are Los Angeles City's largest private employer. Our economic impact on the region is over $5 billion. Although we are a private institution of higher learning, we're a nonprofit company. Institution, we're a 501c3. We're not a real estate developer. We don't have profit margins. Every dollar we raise goes to further our mission of supporting the education of our students, whether or not it's scholarships or academic buildings, student housing, or facilities such as our soon-to-be completed new student health. Our money goes to support our mission. However, it is USC's civic engagement that best reflects the fact that we are in fact a nonprofit institution. We have more than 400 partnerships with local community-based organizations. Each year, USC contributes over $30 million to this area around our campuses. We have programs that no other university in the country has. In particular, I'd like to mention our Neighborhood Academic Initiative, which takes kids from the neighborhood, works with them for 6 years. They're admitted to USC. They receive a full scholarship, no loans whatsoever. And they graduate at the same rate as our traditional population, over 90%. We also have a Good Neighbors campaign, where we've contributed millions of dollars. And these are our employees digging into their own pockets to support community programs. This community engagement has really become a part of USC's DNA, and it's carried over to the process involving the specific plan. We've had over 100 meetings with community groups. We've met with community-based organizations, the faith community, residents, school principals, neighborhood councils, block clubs, local merchants, and of course, USC students and staff. And some of our supporters and some of these folks are here today, and I'd like them to stand up and please be acknowledged. I thank all of you for your support, not just today, but through this over 3-year process. Thank you so much.
Welcome to City Hall.
I mentioned the meetings we've had, and as a result of these meetings, the plan has evolved into what you have before you today. We've listened to the community. We've not just listened to them, we've responded to the points they've raised. One of the points that the community raised repeatedly was they wanted more student housing. They wanted more students to be able to live on campus, and we've done that. The plan provides for over 2 million square feet of campus housing for our students. That's 40% of the total square footage available under the specific plan. Equally important, this housing will be affordable so students can in fact take advantage of it. It really is important to recognize that this project is being done entirely on land that's owned by USC. We're not acquiring 1 foot of property we don't own now. This is essentially a remodeling project. It's something we own, and we want to make it better. But as a result of this project, by building the campuses, building the housing on campus, we're going to free up housing in the community so that community residents can move into housing that was formerly occupied by students. The other thing we heard a lot from the community was we want the kind of amenities that other communities have. We want to have quality retail and a place to take our family to dinner so we don't have to drive a long distance and pay for gas. We want to be able to do it right in our community. And one of the things we heard most often is they really do want a full-service grocery store. So the plan provides for all of those things. And we believe the kinds of amenities we're offering really will transform this neighborhood. I've gone around the country. I've visited other urban campuses. I've been to the University of Pennsylvania. I've been to Chicago. And after we finish this project, there'll be no other community near a university that has the kind of amenities we have. No other urban inner-city community. More than anything, though, the thing that we heard most often from the community is they want jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Implementation of the specific plan will create 12,000 jobs. And the estimated stimulus to the community will be over $5 billion. We're proud to state that these construction jobs will be subject to a project labor agreement, and you'll hear from Robbie Hunter today. And then we're going to focus on hiring people from the community. We want not only to hire broadly in the region, we want to hire from our neighborhood. A few other important facts that I think we should keep in mind as we evaluate this project. This project will be the largest privately funded development in the city of LA, we believe, and possibly the largest in the history of South Los Angeles. The university is not seeking any tax credits, nor subsidies, or public assistance of any kind on this project. All the buildings will be on land owned by the university, and we're not acquiring any land whatsoever. I think that's really important to understand that this is really a remodeling project. Our proposed development agreement provides benefits of over $26 million, and that's to be coupled with the $30 million we contribute year after year, separate and apart from this development. And I want to close by saying that I'm reminding you once again that our community, and it is our community, needs these 12,000 jobs very desperately, and we want to provide them. And I would encourage you to, subject to our letter dated August 20th of this year, to please recommend approval of the specific plan and the development agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. And hopefully you can make yourself available should we have the discussion. If you have any questions, we can approach you on that. Great. So given the large number of previous meetings, what I'd like to do, because we have some pretty thick stacks of people that want to speak, you can see for yourself the room is full. We could probably be here till midnight if we let it. But we're going to go ahead and move with 1 minute for comment per card. And I'll try to be a little more flexible than that, but let's shoot for 1 minute. You have a counter that is right in front of you. So as you're speaking, when you come to the microphone, pace yourself with that 1 minute, and we'll work from there. So we'll go with the support group, then we'll do opposing arguments, and then we'll go with general comments. Then we'll go into discussion, and if there's any input or response from the applicant, we want to offer you that as well. So for the sake of transparency, I want to make sure everyone is on the record for their positions. Okay, so my assumptions are that on this card, and we're going to stop taking cards now, because we're going to stop, because otherwise we'll never finish. We're going to stop taking cards. If I call to support or oppose, and for whatever reason you mark the wrong box, just say, this is my position, and we'll line it correctly. So our next speaker is Robbie Hunter. Good afternoon, sir.
Community members. Robbie Hunter, Los Angeles and Orange County Building Construction Trades Council. We represent 140,000 construction workers, many of whom live in a 10-mile radius of USC. As you know, USC has done a project labor agreement with the building trades. Within that agreement, they requested that a minimum of 30% of all the workers on this job site will be from a 5-mile radius, and we've agreed to that. And they got something from us that we've never given to anybody. We looked at the university, we look what the university does for students and for scholarships, and we have given them residential rates for the construction, which means our workers on these job sites will work for less than the full construction rate. And that's something that we have never done before. USC themselves has done much outreach to the community. We will be hiring apprentices when we're on these job sites, and we will take them in from the community. They will get permanent construction jobs. When this project's over, there'll be plumbers and electricians, and that's a part of the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Our next speaker is Johnny O'Kane, and then Kevin Bass and Gary Cook. And you're welcome to come to the microphone. Johnny O'Kane, Kevin Bass, and Gary Cook would like to come on up. You just form a line, and I know it's an emotional issue, but if we can stick to the minute, that'd be great.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Johnny O'Kane, represent ironworkers in Los Angeles, and it's my hat's off to the campus for, bringing this project aboard, because there's a lot of young men and women in the surrounding communities who the building trades will be their college. So thank you, support of it.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that was succinct. Kevin Bass?
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Kevin Bass with the Painters and Allied Trades, and we represent some 11,000 members in the LA area, many of which are adjacent to the university. Of course, this is important to us for the jobs and for putting people back to work. But another thing that I'd like to bring up is that the workers that we'll be supplying and then the workers we'll be bringing from the community will be brought up to date on the most current safety standards. So you won't have any issues with safety, and everyone will be able to work and live and work some more. So they'll learn the right way, and that's the way they'll go through their apprenticeship. So just wanted you to take that into consideration for your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Gary Cook? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Gary Cook, UA Plumbers Local 78. I'm the business manager and financial secretary of the local. We have been in the LA basin in the community for over 120 years. We have members that live in the community and work throughout LA County, and we will bring in apprentices into our program. It's been around since the Shelley Maloney Act, 1939, I believe. So we have a well-established apprenticeship and look forward to it. We're supportive of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Our next speaker, or group of speakers, is Maria Guadalupe Garrido, Demetrius Jones, Jacqueline Turner, and Kim Thomas Barrios. Come on up. That's Maria Guadalupe Garrido, Demetrius Jones, Jacqueline Turner, and Kim Thomas Barrios. Come on up. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, council members. I am the president of the Parent Family Development Institute, run by the USC Neighborhood Academic Initiative Program. For the past 24 years, I have lived in the community. My children were born in the community. My son attends USC and my daughter Fauché High School. I approve and support the USC specific plan because our community deserves new, affordable, quality stores, bookstores, family restaurants, replace the old fire station, a beautiful open green space to enjoy with family and friends, safer environment and additional street lighting. Many of the alternatives are in downtown, and the surrounding areas are too expensive for my income. USC will create 12,000 more jobs, contributing to more families being employed. At the new USC Village, our children will interact with the USC college students. These children will have an incentive to do good, inspire a college education, and learn to be part of the university environment and feel proud to belong to this neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir. Please give us your name.
Good afternoon. Demetrius Jones, Los Angeles, California, 90089.
I'm present today to give my full support for the University of Southern California Planning and Land Use Management Committee. As a neighbor and student of the university, I have witnessed firsthand the community commitment that the university provides. While attending my LAUSD alma mater, the University of Southern California would always have a heavy presence on campus, whether it was tutoring, advising my peers and myself on the course or curriculum that we were having. Even still today, I witness the university aiding the youth to further their education by still going out to local high schools and assisting counselors with high school advisement, helping teachers with tutoring, and even housing low-income first-generation students for 5 weeks as a summer residential program. Today, I am in full support as a neighbor and a product of the University of Southern California.
They teach speed reading as well, huh? All right. Come on up, Jacqueline Turner, Kim Thorne, and we have Richard Parks. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Turner. I would like to share how the University of California, Southern California supported our community throughout the years. I was raised a few blocks from the university, and as we all know, those streets aren't the safest. Success was not as promised to us who grew up in the midst of gang violence, teen pregnancy, and poverty. But with outside help, people in our neighborhood, including myself, found a way out, and it's what seemed to be a dead end. USC has always supported underrepresented and underfunded high schools in my neighborhood. Because of these programs housed under the University of Southern California, I was able to take advantage of resources that weren't easily accessible to me and my family. USC has personally supported me to get through college through their pre-college programs, and I am now employed by USC and working to give back to the community as USC gave back to me. I'm in full support of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, and I would like to...
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Kim Thomas-Barrios, Richard Parks, and Joy Vieira. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I agree with everything she said. I'm a 50-year resident of the USC neighborhood. My parents were there before me and my grandparents. I am a product of USC. My children both went to USC. My sister went to USC. We all went to USC because USC really believes in the neighborhood children. I'm over the Neighborhood Academic Initiative program. We have 620 middle and high school students who enjoy being on campus every week. High schoolers are there every day. We're really looking forward to, the kids are looking forward to this project. We're in complete and utter we're behind this completely. The kids are looking really forward to the green and open space where they can gather. Once again, the people in my neighborhood are looking forward to it as well. Every time I wear my 12,000 Jobs T-shirt in the neighborhood, I get mobbed because everyone wants to know exactly where those jobs are.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parks, Joy Vieira, and Michael Banner, please come on up to the microphone. Good day, sir.
Good day. My name is Richard Parks. I'm a 20-year resident of the West University Park neighborhood, and I am fully in support of this plan. Every morning, many of my neighbors get on buses to the far reaches of our region for jobs, and a job in the neighborhood will give those families back more than a month every year of their life, time to spend with their children. USC's commitment to build bike lanes, plant street trees, add pedestrian lighting to Jefferson Boulevard west to Western Avenue, Western Boulevard, for the first time really bridges the historic divide between the community and the campus. It will connect residents and children from our neighborhood with this development, with the jobs and with the retail. And, I look forward to the day when my children and their friends from the community can ride their bikes to go see a movie, to go to a restaurant there, to bike to school. I ask that you would support this development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Michael Banner, Joy Vieira, are you here? V-I-E-R-A. Joy?
Michael Banner. I'm here today to support the approval of the specific plan for the university. University is, as Tom Sales mentioned earlier, they're about investing in human capital, which is the most important thing that we need in this city, is the development of great minds, leaders like yourself. This project will provide numerous benefits that have all been detailed for you today. And I actually started out working in that shopping center. That was my first job, which is now the Denny's. So this is a personal thing for me, and as some of you know, I've worked all over the city trying to bring change, and I think this will be an important attribute for this part of the city that will provide a legacy for it to be built on by everybody in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Banner. Jessica Dubov, Aaron Aulenta, I believe. Jessica Dubov, Aaron Aulenta, and Irene Rodriguez. Like to come on up? Yeah, Jessica, Aaron, and Irene. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. Jessica Dubov had to leave unexpectedly, but my name is Tina Hossein, and I'm here representing the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. And we are here to fully support the University of Southern California's specific plan. Our chamber's top priority is to facilitate economic growth and to enhance the quality of life for residents in the Los Angeles community. This plan could not be a more ideal example of that goal. It will create approximately 12,000 new jobs for people in the community, and once the facilities are operational, it will generate $5 billion over the course of the project, including new shopping and dining areas that will be of use to the entire community. USC is a major contributor to our community and a driving reason behind the decision for many to come to our great city, whether it be a student for educational opportunities or a business looking to access a skilled workforce. The Los Angeles Chamber strongly supports this plan, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration with USC and the university. Thank you.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Tina Hossein.
Okay, thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Howard.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Alenta. I'm here today representing the Figueroa Corridor Partnership Business Improvement District. I'm here today to voice support for the USC specific plan. The Figueroa Corridor Partnership has been in operation for the past 15 years, is made up of 125 property owners, and covers the area that includes Expo Park, the USC campus, and the corridor that connects South LA to downtown. The area covered by the specific plan is within our bid boundaries. The partnership is in support of the plan because it's complementary of everything the bid has been in favor of doing over the past 15 years, because it continues the investment being put into the Figueroa corridor, because it reinforces the work the bid has been doing to improve the area, and because it follows the original vision the bid had when it was established in 1998. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Irene Rodriguez, Yuri
Good afternoon.
Guardado. I'm sorry, just a couple of folks. Yuri Guardado, Jay McAdams, and Emilio Garza. Come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Irene Rodriguez, 3720 South Flower Street. I'm pleased to acknowledge my support for the USC specific plan. I am also the vice chair of the Figueroa Corridor Business Improvement District, and you just heard from Mr. Aulenta that the BID is in support of this plan. I'm also a USC employee of over 27 years and a USC ambassador. I'm very much aware of USC's vested interest in making positive investments in this community. I have two daughters, one who is a USC student and one who works in the corridor, who would love to see this project come to fruition. In closing, I was born and raised just a few blocks south of USC. So I've actually have lived and worked in this neighborhood for over 40 years. So as a former resident of this community, I'm very pleased to see the continued renaissance of downtown LA and the Figueroa Corridor, and excited to see the tremendous opportunities of this proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Yuri Guardado, and I'm a resident of the community surrounding USC. My family and I have lived there for over 15 years. My sister and I have gone to USC, and we've seen the incredible generosity of the university. We're very pleased to see the university continue to invest time and money to improving our community, a community where we want to live, and we want to continue to be able to go out with our families and enjoy a beautiful time in our own communities, and we are very pleased to see the university continue to support that. And I am in full support of the specific plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yahira Hernandez and Teresa Martinez, come on up, please, sir.
Good afternoon, Jay McAdams, Executive Director, 24th Street Theater. We're one of the 400 community partners that Vice President Sales referred to, and great community partners they have been. We've been there 15 years, and they've helped us put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of neighborhood kids in free after-school programming. They pump over $1 million. I think last year it was about $1.4 million to the cluster of schools around SC. And those are all Title I schools. They receive resources that no other Title I schools in the city receives because of SC's work. And this is, as Vice President Sales said, this is contributions from employees of the university themselves. It's huge. It has helped us survive and grow into a reputable nonprofit. We're one of the biggest arts ed providers in the city, and USC is the reason for that. So they're very generous to the community. We support their plan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your work.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Emilio Garza. I'm an assistant principal at Fauché Learning Center. I just wanted to come up and discuss a little bit about the support that USC has given us. Not only are they a part of our NAI program that has sent, in the last 6 years that I've been at USC, over 100 students, but they've also supported our school in a variety of different types of programs. Our students who have learned about the project that USC is currently embarking on are very excited to have the opportunity to go to the movies in a safe environment, or do their shopping, or their attend restaurants, or whatever the case is, that they'll know that they'll be in a safer environment because it's a part of USC. Lastly, I know a lot of people have asked for more, but we need to take a look at where the economy is right now and understand that the reality is that the fact that USC is embarking on such an ambitious project is really something that should be commended and should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speakers, before you start, let me call up a few more folks. Urbano Espinosa and Lizette Zarate. Come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Yahaira Hernandez. I lived in this community for 32 years now. I live on Adams and Arlington and work on Adams and Grand. I'm a graduate of Manual Arts High School. My 2 teenage sons attend Fauché High School as well as the NAI program at USC. And my other son attends Norwood Elementary. My family and I support the specific plan 100%. It's about time that someone gave back to the community. Our children deserve a better place where they can hang out and enjoy themselves in a safe environment. We are thrilled to hear that new jobs and housing will be created. With the economy being what it is today, and we should all be grateful that someone is investing in a project this big that will benefit all of us. I am tired, not to mention broke at the fact that we have to drive out to neighboring cities to enjoy a good restaurant, theaters, or shops. I want to give back to the economy, and what better way to start in my own community? And this is why we support this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Teresa Martínez. Yo apoyo el plan de USC por el apoyo que hemos recibido del programa de NAI.
Good afternoon, my name is Teresa Martínez and I am in support of this plan presented by USC.
Yo apoyo el plan de USC por el apoyo que hemos recibido del programa de NAI.
I support USC's plan due to the support we received for the NAI program.
Ya que por medio de ese programa, nuestros hijos han sido unos estudiantes sobresalientes en todos los estudios.
Due to that program, our students have excelled in all of their academic programs and studies.
Ya que si ustedes dieran ese permiso para la construcción de la universidad, nosotros como comunidad seríamos una comunidad de mucho beneficio.
If you approve and allow this permit to be issued to USC, then it will be of great benefit to our community.
Ya que ahora se está mirando más beneficios por USC para la comunidad.
Now we're seeing a lot more benefits from USC to help the community.
Yo tengo 25 años de estar viviendo en esta ciudad.
I've been living in this city for the last 25 years.
Y como comunidad, pues sería un beneficio para todos nosotros como padres y para nuestros hijos, ¿verdad?
And this will greatly benefit the community, us as parents, and especially our children.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Muy bien, God bless you.
Thank you. Gracias. Good afternoon.
My name is Urbano Espinosa. Good afternoon, members of the council. I'm in full support of this project, not only because of my kids going to the USC programs and stuff, but also along the years, I've been noticed that all this neighborhood it needs a lot of improvement. We definitely need better quality of life for our kids, and I'm fully supporting this, and hopefully there's no issues between the misunderstanding of our community. It's a lot of misunderstanding that some of the people are going to get their houses down or they're going to lose values or something like that. But it's definitely a good project, and I fully support. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, before you start, we have Melissa Gaiki. I apologize if I mispronounce it. Lisa Gallegos, Julio Perez, and Michelle Garcia. Like to come on up? Melissa Gaeke, Lisa Gallegos, Julio Perez, and Michelle Garcia. Please come on up to the microphone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Lizette Zarate, and my history with USC is a long one. My grandparents first moved to the USC community about 65 years ago, and the person I am today has in many ways been defined by my relationship with USC. I was a participant of the Neighborhood Academic Initiative, and I was able to attend the university on the scholarship that was awarded to me by the program. And I'm a current employee of the program. I now work as a program manager for the Neighborhood Academic Initiative. And so I'm really excited for our students to be able to have access to a vibrant facility where they can enjoy, they can hang out, and it's right in their community. I'm also a resident of the community, so I really look forward to raising my daughter in the same community where I grew up, but having access to a lot more than I had as a child. So thank you. I approve of this project.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Gaiki. I live in Eagle Rock 90041, and I'm in full support of this project. I'm an adjunct assistant professor and staff member at USC for the last 10 years. I'm here to express my support for the project, in particular the increased academic space that will create more opportunities for students to engage in community-based learning. USC is one of the oldest and most well-renowned service learning programs in the country and sends more than 1,300 students out into the community each semester. The proposed open space and amenities of this project would create an ideal location for students, faculty, and community leaders to come together in shared learning and teaching. I teach in the Saul Price School of Public Policy, and I want my students to not just study issues of involvement in community building, I want them to experience it firsthand. I want them to have the opportunity to engage neighborhood leaders both inside and outside the classroom, and the proposed project will create an ideal space to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Gallegos. I'm currently president of USC Staff Assembly. Our Staff Assembly is an official recognized branch of the university which exists to promote the growth and welfare of USC employees. As president, I represent 12,000 employees at USC. They're all staff. Like everyone here, we want what's best for our community. We spend lots of time at USC. We know that USC cannot be successful without a strong community. We support programs such as USC Good Neighbors, in which we donate portions of our salary to local schools and local programs, and we do this all on our own. Not all our employees live in the community, but we spend lots of time here, and we want places to eat, shop, and interact with the community. The current village does not provide us with these options. When I started here, back in 1990, I remember walking in the village and thinking to myself, this place is old and outdated. Well, it's 22 years later, and it hasn't changed. Our employees and our community members deserve so much more. Finally, given that school is starting next week, many of our USC students could not be here today. I would also like to state that the USC undergraduate student government, which represents 17,500 students, also supports this plan. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Garcia. I have lived within 2 miles of USC for the last 26 years. I attended Manual Arts High School, and I participated in the Neighborhood Academic Initiative program. I went on to receive a full scholarship to USC, and I'm now currently pursuing my master's degree in entrepreneurship from Pepperdine University. USC has touched the lives of thousands of students in the local community, and that will forever change our lives, and we are very, very grateful, so we fully support the specific plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Julio Perez. I live at 37 Drive in Western. I have 2 kids. My daughter is attending Fort Shea, and my son will attend USC. Thanks for the different program that USC has, and I'm here to prove it that everything that what Mr. Tom says is true. So my son is going to be there. I'm here to support the USC specific plan for 3 reasons. One, if this program, if this new construction is going to give a better place to walk, go to the movies, and eat. So it's better to say yes to this new construction. Also, like my teacher said, more jobs, 12,000 jobs, and 8,000 is going to be permanent. All our community needed, all United States needed a job. So in USC is giving few thousand jobs. So I say please do support and also more tax for the city, so the city can continue to do better job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bertrand Perdomo, Ann Williams, Evelyn Alexander, please come up to the microphone. Bertrand Perdomo, Ann Williams, Evelyn Alexander, come on up, don't be shy. Felipe Sanchez, Joseph Frankel. I call a lot of folks. Bertrand Perdomo, are you here? Bertrand? Come on up, Bertrand. Ann Williams, Evelyn Alexander, Felipe Sanchez, or Felipe, I'm not sure. I'm trying to read the writing. Joseph Frankel. Good afternoon, sir. Please.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Bertrand Perdomo. I am a resident of 90037 in South Los Angeles. And I went to John Muir Middle School and Manual Arts High School, and I went through the Neighborhood Academic Initiative program, which thanks to them, I was the first in my family to attend and graduate from college, and I attended USC and graduated from the School of Public Policy in December. I'm now program coordinator for the school for USC Kid Watch. And I want to come here in full support because the university project really will bring something that my family doesn't have to drive to all the way to the Grove or to the Americana to be able to enjoy the benefits that this project will bring. So I want my mother and I want my community members to benefit from this project. And also I just want to say that it is not displacement, because in 2006, my family lost our home and somebody else bought it. So the new property owner decided on who they would rent the property to. So I want the community members and I want all our elected officials to hold them accountable on who they want to rent.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, council members. Evelyn Alexander here representing FAST, Fixing Angelinos Stuck in Traffic, a nonprofit dedicated to practical solutions to LA's traffic crisis. FAST is happy to support this visionary transit-centered renaissance of USC's campus and surrounding area. This economic investment will be fueled by ridership of the new Expo line, bike riders and pedestrians, and it demonstrates USC's leadership in enhancing the surrounding community as well as expanding an environmentally progressive university campus. The new Expo line's 3 stops through USC will allow students, faculty, employees, and sports fans to walk and bike from the Expo line through USC and the revitalized University Village. FAST would especially like to highlight USC's creation of a mobility hub, which will host bike share, car share, and secure bike parking. Mobility hubs will embed lasting, sustainable transportation practices into the lifestyles of students, faculty, employees, sports fans, and community members. FAST supports the specific plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Felipe Sanchez. My address is 1484 West 29th Street. I live in the community for the past 21 years. I have 2 children. I fully support of the specific plan, not because my kids benefit from the NAI program, but because the USC have done so many good things and we need jobs. The economy is really bad. We have a small business and we're suffering. Everybody's suffering. And I think that this specific plan will bring a lot of money, taxes, and a lot of jobs. My son could benefit from one of them right now. He graduated from the 12th grade. He's going to go to college. And if the plan was already in progress, he could apply for a job and have a job, and I didn't have to support him. Now I have to give him money for gas. By having a job, with the jobs that are they're going to be offered after the specific plan is passed and we move forward, then my daughter will benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you much. I feel your pain. I got 4 kids too, so. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Frankel. I am in agreement with USC's specific plan. I've been in the community for over 25 years, since I was yay high, and USC has done nothing but improve the community. I can't see USC do anything but that. And with them bringing in these new restaurants, and I'm just hoping more people come here. Like people go to the Grove, I want them to come to my community. The money needs to roll in. Why not it be in my community? And that's all I see USC doing. With the students coming in and just about everything that USC does, I don't know why people would say no to this. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ann Williams, last time. Daryl Landis, and Jose Luis Garcia. Come on up. And that should conclude the support stack. Then I'll go to the opposed stack. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, thank you. Daryl Landis, I'm the interim director for the South Park Business Improvement District. We generally encompass the 10 and 110 freeways, Grand Avenue and 9th Street. So representing a community of about 1,100 property owners directly to the north of the USC area, we definitely support this USC specific plan. We recognize the benefit not only for USC and the immediate community, but also some of the surrounding communities just adjacent to the north. Our property owners will definitely benefit from having additional amenities and or services. People have mentioned the Grove and other areas that are quite a significant distance away, whereas USC would just be a short cab ride or possibly a streetcar ride or other projects that are coming up as well. So we definitely support this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please come on up.
My name is Chris Navoa. I'm an organizer with Unite Here, and this is Jose Luis Garcia. I will be translating for him.
Would you mind if our translator...
That's fine.
That's fine. Buenas tardes, señor. Si me permite que la persona para traducir tiene tiempo para...
Está bien.
Ok, por favor.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es José Luis García.
Good afternoon, my name is José Luis
Y soy
Garcia.
un residente de Los Ángeles.
I'm a resident of Los
Y
Angeles.
soy un miembro de Unión de United Here, Local 11.
I am a member of United
Here, Local 11.
here, Local 11.
Tengo 4 años en la universidad trabajando como steward.
I have been working for 4 years at the university as a steward.
En este tiempo necesitamos buenos trabajos que paguen un sueldo digno.
In this current times, we need more, better jobs that pay a fair wage.
Que nos dé un seguro médico y trabajos donde hay respeto.
With medical insurance and provide the type of work that provides dignity and respect.
Nosotros de USC apoyamos el proyecto porque construye 150 nuevos trabajos de hotel.
Us people that work at USC, we support this plan because it will provide 150 new hotel jobs.
Estos trabajos son de buena calidad
These are good quality jobs,
y nos da la seguridad de vivir mejor en nuestra comunidad.
and it will allow us and give us the security or safety to be able to live better with a better quality of life in our community.
Por eso nosotros estamos de acuerdo, yo y mis compañeros, en este plan.
That's why we are in support, myself and my friends, we support this plan.
Gracias, que pasen bonito día.
Thank you, have a good day.
Okay, gracias a usted. José Luis Garcia? That was you? Okay, estamos bien. All right, that concludes the support stack. Now we'll go to the opposed. And I was trying my best to follow the alignment that as you came in. So here we have with us Paulina Gonzalez, Rachel Joray, Pastor Matt Keatle, and Francisco Arzu. I think it's ARZU. And Bawa, that's the last name, B-A-W-A?
Miss Bawa.
Okay, all right. So please coming up, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Paulina Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SAGE, and I am here today on behalf of Unidad. We are here to express our grave concerns about the USC specific plan and the development agreement in their current form. And although we support union jobs, we oppose approving a development project of this scale without real tools to ensure that families that live and work in our community will be able to remain in the community and benefit from this investment. Even though USC says they're not acquiring property and they're building on their property, I want to remind us all that this property was acquired by the CRA and through the use of eminent domain. Today, our speakers will share with you information about who lives in the community, how they will be impacted, and ways that USC can mitigate these impacts. One of the speakers today will be talking about the Columbia University Community Benefits Agreement that included a $20 million affordable housing fund. The City of New York showed tremendous leadership in bringing forth that investment for affordable housing. We are here today as we look to you for leadership, to provide leadership for affordable housing in this community.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you so much. Our next speaker? Yes, just time yourself with that clock, okay?
Hello, my name is Rachel Dre, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for St. Francis Center. I'm here to provide the members of Plum with context about who lives and works in the area immediately surrounding the USC specific plan. In order to understand the plan and its impact, it is important to understand the community in which the development is being proposed. The Figueroa corridor of South Los Angeles is home to a diverse community of approximately 41,000 people. The majority of the residents are working class, low income, Latino, and African American families. Many of them have lived in this neighborhood for decades. Many of these families struggle to make ends meet and earn incomes of less than 50% of the average Angelino. 89% of the residents are renters, compared to 62% of the city of Los Angeles. The majority of these residents already pay more than half of their income on rent, making them extremely vulnerable to housing displacement. Yet, these families have built a community and should have the right, even though they are largely renters, to stay in their community and to have a voice in how that community is developed. We urge Plum to consider these residents in the USC specific plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Pastor Matt Kittle, then Francisco Arzu. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Matt Cadle, pastor, St. Mark's Lutheran Church. Our congregation is located across the street from USC on the corner of Vermont Avenue and 36th Place. We've been there for over 100 years. Our immediate neighborhood used to consist of a diverse fabric of long-term families, many of them with children, many with seniors. In recent years, however, as the university has increased its resident student population, these local families have been almost entirely displaced. Students have been pitted against long-term residents in a scramble for scarce affordable housing. And our most vulnerable residents, families, children, seniors, they've lost out. This housing issue is massive. It's much more massive than the current draft of the plan acknowledges. I heard things about square feet, but nothing about the number of beds. We welcome students, but we need more affordable housing for both students and families so that our community can be one that is safe and sustainable for all of the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Francisco?
Yes, hello. Hi, my name is Francisco Arzu. I'm a senior program manager for CD Tech. I'm going to be reading a statement on behalf of Human Impact Partners. Human Impact Partners is a national leader in health impact assessments. We were hired to conduct a health impact assessment on USC's specific plan and its likely impacts on the surrounding community. We conducted the HIA in the first quarter of 2012, working with the local residents of the neighborhood surrounding USC and drawing upon the expertise of subject matter experts in housing, economics, urban planning, and public health. Unidad is submitting to you a copy of the HIA final report for your further consideration, but we have asked for this brief letter to be read in order to emphasize two things especially. The negative health impacts of gentrification and displacement on economically vulnerable populations such as the ones surrounding USC are numerous, serious, and well documented. Increases in housing costs can threaten low-income populations, food security, and financial insecurity, and lead to overcrowded living conditions, displacement, and acceptance of slum housing conditions. This, in turn, increases risk for infectious disease, poor mental health, poor childhood development, and host of stress-related illnesses and conditions, and even premature death.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I think we got the gist. Bawa?
Yes.
And then-
Actually, I've just been informed that translation is not working.
Ok. Las personas que no están escuchando por la falta del aparato, ¿pueden darnos mano? Hay personas que no pueden oír, escuchar. ¿Le hace falta otro aparato? Can we distribute, do we have any other apparatus for translation? Do we have any more? Because they're or was it the city? Do we have? Oh, they have their own system.
It's just for the testimony that I'm going to give.
So when you interpret,
just to-
can they hear you?
Just to explain. If we had been informed, we could have also brought translation equipment. That's really not a problem, but not.
Okay, can how many people need to
So unless you took it back, is that what just happened?
All right.
I'll be over there just in case.
Okay. ¿Pueden escuchar? ¿Se entiende?
Great.
¿Sí? ¿Sí se oye? Yes.
Okay, great.
¿Sí puede escuchar la persona que está interpretando? Ok, está bien. So, sí están escuchando. Ok, bien.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're back on track with the translation. Okay, before you speak, Ms. Bawa, I'd like to call up Pastor Epps, Ariana Millman, Estela Sirna, I believe, or Serene, and Sister Diane Donahue. So, Pastor Epps, Ariana Millman, Estela, I think it's Civne, I'm not sure, and Sister Diane Donahue. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jotswaru Bawa. I'm the Associate Director at SAGE. I'm here on behalf of Unidad to describe the impacts of residents moving from one low-income neighborhood to another and what that means for the city. We had a map which I guess we can't use. So in data collected from 2000 and 2010, it's clear that there's been a decrease in the African American population in 90007 zip code, the area surrounding USC. That is twice that than the rest of the city. The Latino population in the same zip code, 90007, has decreased by 15%, whereas it's increased in every other area of LA, of the city. Family households have also decreased in 90007 by almost 18%. And whereas there's been an increase in family households in 90037 and 90011. Those are the zip codes south and east of the area surrounding USC.
Can you submit your map for the record? So that way we can have it on record to review.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And if any other narrative you think can go with it, so just submit it to the sergeant. Good afternoon, Pastor.
Good afternoon. My name is William Epps. I pastor the Second Baptist Church located at 2412 Griffith Avenue. We're the oldest African-American Black Baptist church in Los Angeles, organized in 1885. We've been on our current location since 1926. Worked with Esperanza, Unidad, and the Coalition for Responsible Community Development. And I'm here in support of Unidad's request that a more fair and equitable way be devised to maintain the integrity of the community with the expansion that's taking place so that folk are not displaced or disenfranchised. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before the next speaker comes on up, we have Pat Diaz. Come on up. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Estela Sirne.
Si me permite, para que pueda...
Gracias. Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Estela Sirne. Yo tengo 25 años viviendo por esa área.
Good afternoon, my name is Estela Cisne, and I've been living in that area for the last 25 years.
Estoy de acuerdo en los cambios que van a hacer porque son unos cambios muy bonitos.
I'm in agreement with the changes that are being proposed because they're very beautiful.
Y un servicio para toda la comunidad porque hay mucha delincuencia, hay muchos cholos.
It's going to provide a lot of very positive amenities for the community because there's a lot of delinquency in the area, a lot of gang members.
Y es un cambio, yo pienso que para todos, para los de la universidad y para mis hijas también.
It's a very positive change, not just for my children, but also for the university and surrounding area.
Lo que sí estoy un poco preocupada es porque yo tengo un pequeño negocio que estoy instalada en la Vermont y la 28.
I am a little bit concerned because I have a small business. It's located on Vernon and 28.
Estoy preocupada porque pues la renta, no sé cómo nos vaya ahí con la renta. Y yo soy de un, ¿cómo se dice? Yo soy por medio de bajos recursos.
I am concerned because of the amount of rent that I may have to pay, which may increase. I am a low-income family.
Pero estoy de acuerdo, me da mucho gusto por estos cambios que todo va a estar muy bonito.
But I am in support. I'm very happy because of all these changes. Everything is going to turn out more beautiful.
Muchísimas gracias. Con permiso.
A usted, muchas gracias. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Ariana Millman, and I'm here on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles, to urge Plum to amend the specific plan and agreement to include the proposals submitted by Unidad. Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles represents over 5,000 physicians, healthcare professionals, and concerned community members in Southern California who advocate for a world free of nuclear threats and safe, healthy environments for all communities. We are especially concerned that the USC plan does not sufficiently mitigate the university's impact on housing costs and the displacement of local families, which will have a negative impact on the health of local residents. Residential stability has been identified as one of the major important predictors of community health. Moving can result in job loss, difficult school transitions, and the loss of health protective social networks. Overcrowding can seriously impair the quality of life. To avoid these negative impacts on health, it is essential that residents living near USC have access to affordable housing through a trust fund.
Thank you very much. So good to see you, sister.
Thank you. My name is Sister Diane Donahue. I'm the founder of Esperanza Community Housing in 1989. In 1992, 3 organizations, Esperanza, Sage, and Abode Housing, came together to form the Figueroa Corridor Coalition for Economic Justice. That's the precursor of Unidad, and now an organization of 12 very community-minded organizations. Unidad is specifically concerned about the specific plan as it is written now and has very clear recommendations how that plan could include more affordable housing for people that need it right now. That's the big, we are not against jobs, we are not against the kind of organization that SC has represented, and we've had very good relationships with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sister. Pat Diaz. Hi. Right before you speak, let me call up the next group, if I may. Sergio Barrientos. Beth Roden, Susan Stouffer, and David Robinson. Please come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Diaz. I live in 1947 Estrella Avenue, and I am not a graduate of USC, but a graduate of Loyola Marymount University. I have lived in my house for 55 years, lucky to be a homeowner thanks to the efforts and struggles of my mother, Lucrecia Diaz. My concern is that I will continue to lose my neighborhood due to the displacement of my neighbors because landlords want to make more money by renting to students, which of course they are within their right. I mean, it is the American way to make money. Not all students can afford the outrageous rents around the university, and therefore are moving into surrounding neighborhoods where rents are more affordable, but unfortunately driving families out. However, I believe that since these students are here for a temporary basis, they have no vested interest in the community and are helping to improve it. As a distant neighbor, I believe SC should do responsible housing development,
Thank you,
such as Esperanza Housing has done.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, folks, I know it's an emotional issue, but please, so we can keep the committee going. Truly appreciate your cooperation.
Muy buenas tardes tengan ustedes.
Buenas tardes, señor.
El
Good
motivo
afternoon,
para
council members.
mi presencia es para decirles que no estoy en contra de todos los proyectos que dicen, pero también quisiéramos saber a dónde quedamos todas nuestras comunidades, nuestra familia.
I'm here to state that I'm not completely against the project in its entirety, but my question is, what is going to happen to us, to our family, and our community,
Que por años, décadas, hemos vivido en la misma comunidad. Yo soy de la 2913 Sur Flower Street.
A lot of us families have been living in that community for a long time. I live at 2913 South Flower Street.
Muchos inquilinos han sido desalojados. Más familias no han rentado, nomás para los estudiantes.
A lot of the families have been evicted or had to move out of their homes. A lot of the homes are not rented to the residents. Instead, they're rented only to the students.
Habemos muchos que tenemos 30, 32, 18, la mayoría de años en el edificio.
A lot of us have been in that building for 18, 30, a long time, a lot of years.
Todos nuestros apartamentos están como cualquier posilga, todos los de los estudiantes están como cualquier rico, porque a ellos sí les arreglan, nosotros que somos de años no los arreglan.
Our apartments, after living there for a long time, and to date, they're in very, very bad conditions. However, the apartments of the students, they live like rich people. They're in very nice conditions. Theirs are repaired and ours aren't.
This is in the same building, ¿está en el mismo edificio?
¿En el mismo edificio? Sí, en el mismo edificio.
In the same building where students live also.
Y ya vamos a la ciudad, llegan, arreglan una cosita, dejan lo peor y así los tienen por décadas.
We've called the city, they come, they fix some small thing and make a small repair and then leave the rest like that.
Si no pagamos la renta al día, al 1, al 2, el tercer día tenemos la hoja de desalojo.
If we don't pay rent on the first, then the second, or by the second, the third day, we already have an eviction notice.
Gracias, señor.
Muchas gracias.
A usted, muchas gracias. Beth Rodin, I apologize.
That's okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Roden. I'm the Director of Economic Development for Esperanza Community Housing Corporation. I'm here today as a part of the Unidad Coalition to answer a critical question. Why does USC have a responsibility for any of these impacts? USC does not have a responsibility to solve all of our community's challenges. It does, however, have a direct responsibility for its student body. In 2007, USC commissioned a study by Enterprise Community Partners to analyze its student housing demand. The study showed that the gap between undergraduates who are housed at USC and those who want to be housed at USC is 17%, and that for graduate students is 53%. The report showed that this unmet demand represented nearly 11,000 student beds. Despite the documented demand, the current specific plan would only require USC to construct 1,000 net new beds. To the extent to which USC chooses a development strategy that does not take responsibility for meeting its student housing needs.
Thank you. Please submit that for the record. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Susan Stauffer. I'm the director of the Peace Center of United University Church, the church on campus, and we have been in this community for 130 years. I'm here as part of Unidad to discuss the scale of USC's impact on the community. USC says that new student housing in this development will free up for community use 900 units of student-occupied private housing. In order to meet its documented student demand and to actually free up housing in the community, USC would need to construct nearly 11,000 new student beds, reducing market rate rents in the area and freeing up 2,200 beds in the community. And if you will, just look at this poster. Says if USC is saying that they're going to build 900 beds, which would free up 4,200 units. If they did 10,600 beds, the unmet need, it would free up 2,200 units. So we're asking that you take into consideration the scope of this impact. And
thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, before we speak, Mr. Robinson, we have Father Bill Delaney. We have Orinio Opinaldo and Max Hoyland. Good day, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is David Robinson. I'm political director of SAGE, a member organization of Unidad. We believe the major problem with USC's specific plan as currently drafted is that it doesn't nearly meet the existing student demand for housing, not nearly. So in order to significantly mitigate what would otherwise be a devastating impact on the neighborhoods, we're arguing that USC needs to ensure that at least a couple of thousand local families can stay, either through affordable housing contribution or local jobs or small business support. That combination in concert, more of one, less in the other, but we have very specific proposals that would enable, again, about 2,200 local families to stay. And we want to just emphasize that, well, you have to help preserve a community, not just a few lucky individuals. And the current contribution of the development agreement is just enough to help about 20 families.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Just submit that for the record. Yes. Submit it to the clerk if you'd like.
Good afternoon. My name is Father Bill Delaney. I'm the senior priest at St. Agnes Church on the corner of Adams in Vermont. I'm here as one of the leaders of One LA, an alliance with Unidad, to present our proposals on student housing. The specific plan and development agreement should not be approved until there's substantial changes made, especially regarding the number of student beds USC commits to build on its own property. In the last 10 years, St. Agnes Parish lost 1,000 families. 1,000 families is 5,000 people. These residences were formerly occupied by low-income families. They are now occupied by USC students. The development agreement, which is binding, says USC will provide an additional 1,000 beds. This number is unconscionably low. At the very least, it should say that USC will provide 5,400 additional beds, as noted in a specific plan. The plan must require that the new student housing be built within the first 5 years of the project or by the completion of the new university village.
Thank you, sir.
One LA and Unidad will be happy to meet with the Plum Committee to further discuss.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I, Orino Pinaldo, a St. Agnes 1 LA leader, have lived for 62 years at 2656 Brighton Avenue. Approximately 75 of USC students live in our community around USC, where students have loud night parties of drinking and drugs. That has been a major complaint by working families. USC should police its own students by building affordable dorms with resident and security assistance on campus now, not 10 or 20 years from now. Our limited tax dollars for security and safety of our neighborhoods can be used for the community, not USC student parties. USC takes no responsibility for displacement or the long night partying. Others have to solve those problems. Perhaps that's why 2 Chinese students moved away from the partying, why St. Agnes alone has lost thousands of families, and why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before Max Holland speaks, please, folks, give us the courtesy to continue this committee and continue clapping. It just stalls everything else. Before you speak, sir, we have Sandra McNeil, Jennifer Caspar, Zahira Mann, and Juana Osomo. Please come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Hoyland. I graduated from USC this last May. I'm here to oppose the specific plan in its current form and advocate for a version of the plan that benefits both students and non-student residents in the community. Throughout my years at USC, I was a member of Campus Community United, student org that advocated for students who could not afford high rents in the community. We heard from students, we advocated for them. We worked with the Unidad Coalition to advocate for affordable housing. The specific plan does not make a commitment to affordable housing that is concrete, and we want on the record concrete commitments to affordable housing and more housing as well. As has been said, well, I'll cite the environmental impact report. After the 20-year expansion, USC will house only 32% of its students, which is a marginal 3% increase from its current housing of USC students, and we say that's very insufficient to solve the problem.
Did I hear you correct? You are a USC student?
I just graduated.
You just graduated?
Yes.
Okay, and you're organizing students for affordable housing?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
very much. Next speaker?
Hi, Sandra McNeil, Executive Director of Trust South LA, presenting Unidad's affordable housing proposal. The current development agreement would require USC to contribute $2 million to an affordable housing fund to be administered by LEHD, and the Planning Commission has recommended $8 million to be contributed to the Affordable Housing Fund. LEHD and independent housing experts have testified that the average subsidy currently needed to create or preserve 1 unit of affordable housing is $100,000. The proposed contribution in the development agreement would allow only 20 families, that's 1 family per year of the life of the 20-year plan, to stay in the community, and only 80 families if the Planning Commission recommendation were approved. Given the scale of USC's impact, we strongly believe that the amount proposed in the development agreement is not of the same scale as USC's impact, and that USC should contribute sufficient funds to enable 300 local families to remain housed in the neighborhood. This would require a contribution of $30 million.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Dylan Satig. I'm speaking on behalf of Jennifer Casper, the Director of Housing for Esperanza Community Housing. She's sick today. Today I'm here on behalf of Unidad to talk about affordable housing precedent set by other universities. Before examining what contributions other universities have made towards affordable housing, we believe it is even more important to examine what percentage of their students they house, as this is the major cause of USC's impact on the community. Columbia University, given its location and prestige, is a good comparison to look at. Columbia guarantees housing for 100% of its undergraduate students in one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. In addition to this strong commitment to housing their students, when Columbia expanded their campus recently, they made a $20 million contribution to affordable housing. Given the fact that USC currently houses only 53% of its undergraduate students, an affordable housing contribution on the scale of Columbia's is very reasonable. We thus urge the members of Plum to consider requiring a $30 million contribution to the affordable housing.
Thank you very much. Before you speak, ma'am, let me go through the next group of speakers. So after you, we have Zahira Mann, that's you. Then you have Juana Osomo. And then we'll have Frankel Vega, Joe Paul, and then Coffee Baldwin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Zahira Mann. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. We represent several member groups of the Unidad Coalition. We're here to share the proposal for a tenant protection legal clinic and calling on the city to include it in the development agreement. There are approximately 20,000 rent-stabilized units, also known as RSO units, in the Nexus City area, comprising 45% of the current housing stock. Illegal evictions and discrimination against low-income tenants in these units is rampant, and the low rates at which USC houses its students creates incentives for landlords to push out low-income tenants. The clinic's primary purpose would be to prevent housing discrimination and protect the community's stock of rent-stabilized units that have not already increased to market value. The legal clinic would work in conjunction with a community-based organization and would have one supervising attorney, a community organizer, and the cost would be comparable to what Columbia University has established for the same purpose. And the clinic would be primarily staffed by law students, which is an excellent addition to the legal education.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Juana Osomo. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Hola, yo soy Juana Osorio.
Si me permite, vamos a alguien para traducir. Good afternoon. Por favor.
Buenas tardes, yo soy la señora Juana Osorio.
Good afternoon, I am Juan Osorio.
Quiero ajustar el micrófono más cerca. Ahí está.
Yo he vivido en esta comunidad por 40 años.
I've lived in this community for 40 years.
He vivido y he estado en la comunidad por los 40 años. Allí han nacido mis hijos, mis nietos ahora.
I lived in the community for 40 years. My children and grandchildren have grown up there.
Y estoy aquí por la coalición Unidad para destacar a los miembros de la plan.
And I'm here with the United Coalition for the members of Plum.
Impactando a desolida después de viviendas adquiridas en acuerdo de desarrollo para el plan específico de USC.
For the development of the plan at USC.
¿Cuántas otras de viviendas? Mi miedo es el plan siguiendo adelante sin medicados. El de USC no ha aprobado una cantidad de suficiente de viviendas para sus estudiantes y yo.
The issue is that there will not be enough community homes for the students.
Yo y mis vecinos cada vez más estamos siendo empujados fuera de nuestra comunidad.
Myself and my neighbors are eventually being pushed out of our communities
Por el precio de la renta tan alta.
due to the high cost of rent.
Hacemos un llamado a los miembros del plan para asegurar de que USC tienen la obligación
We make a call to the members to change this plan for good.
Gracias, señora.
Gracias.
Okay, next group of speakers. Hi. Good afternoon.
Hello, thank you. My name is Frankel Vega. I'm the CEO of the Right Way Foundation, which provides employment services to the impoverished of South LA and CD1. Specifically, I serve the foster youth emancipating from the system. This is a particularly vulnerable population. 1 in 4 foster youth in California end up in prison within 2 years of emancipation. 35% end up homeless within 18 months of emancipation. 40% will be on public assistance within 2 years of emancipation. I am here in solidarity with the Unidad Coalition to urge Plum to ensure that USC's specific plan development agreement includes requirements for detailed, trackable, enforceable local hiring programs for this project, permanent jobs, including living wage requirements. As of now, the development agreement is the general promise to use first source hiring for permanent jobs, but without details. We appreciate Council members CD8 and CD9 to recommend specific changes to the development agreement. We would like to implement 40% target hiring for all permanent jobs throughout the project, 10% of permanent jobs to be reserved for my beautiful foster care kids, and 70% the hourly permanent jobs be living wage.
Thank you, sir. Before the next speaker, I'd like to call up John Urtiaga, Jorge Nuno, and Gelia Frank. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Paul. I am program coordinator for the UAW LETC Worksource Center. I oversee our reentry program services. I joined Unidad Coalition today in calling for significant and critical job training funds to be included in the development agreement. There must be investment in funding for job training to equip potential community participants to succeed. Currently, this plan mentions training only briefly and devotes $0 to its funding. In order to make sure these jobs reach local residents facing displacement and residents who have significant barriers to employment, there must be significant job training funds written into the development agreement. Quality job training applied to 1,000 residents could help prevent the displacement of 500 families once those residents gain living wage employment. As a workforce development professional, I know that a conservative cost per person for job training is about $5,000. So therefore, we're requesting $5 million in job training funds to be included in the agreement.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Coffee Baldwin. Please.
My name is Coffee Baldwin. I'm 31 years old, and I'm a single mother, and I've lived and worked in this area for my entire life. I currently have a job with a major employer downtown because of a local hiring agreement won by the Unidad Coalition. USC's plan has to include enforceable local hiring for good living wage for full-time jobs. I have a 9-year-old son who I support completely on my own. We would not be able to survive without the job I gained through the community training program linked to local hire agreement. Prior to this, I've been looking for work for 2 years. A year and a half ago, I got this job via local hire agreement, and it has made it possible for me to provide for my family's basic needs without government assistance. With that income, we eat. With that income, I buy shoes for my son to go to school. Without that local hire agreement, he does not have shoes to go to school, and he is hungry. If that happens, he doesn't do well in school. So from my experience, local hiring is crucial for people who come from low-income areas, and our survival depends on this.
Thank you, ma'am. Before our next speaker, I'd like to call up Joe Donlin, Nona Randois, and Benny Torres. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi. My name is John Urtiaga. I own a small business store in the village. It's a bicycle store. My concern, the reason I'm here, is that we have not had any kind of commitment or guarantee from USC as far as the existing retail owners coming back into the project that's been completed. Most of us don't know when or if we're ever going to come back, or if we're allowed to come back, and that's my concern. We want to make sure that the agreement specifies that we are able to come back and that we're given options to come back initially. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Nuno. I'm a small business owner east of 4 blocks east of USC. I'm here on behalf of Unidad Coalition to represent the small business proposal for the members to plumb. Critical way to keep families in the area is to support small businesses. Small businesses help provide middle-income salaries to their owners. They offer the possibility for home ownership for many families and college education for their children. It is critical that USC's specific plan not disseminate the small business community for the Nexus study area. We are calling on Plum to recommend the inclusion of the following proposal for development agreement to make sure small businesses are being protected. Small business empowerment services to 40 small businesses in the Nexus area to the USC Marshall School of Business. Help facilitate access to capital to up to $150,000 per business for these 40 small businesses throughout the creation of collateral loan, and that will allow the small business owners to access existing capital resources.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Galia Frank. I'm a professor of occupational science and anthropology at USC since 1982. I am here to focus on the Unidad Coalition's constructive and revenue-neutral procurement policy that it's requesting be included in the USC Development Agreement. Last spring, my graduate students studied the effectiveness of USC's local procurement program, which stipulates that 15% of USC's purchases will come from the local community. We found significant barriers to the implementation of this otherwise good policy. Unidad is asking Plum to recommend that the development agreement include a commitment from USC to meet its 15% goal for local procurement, that local be defined by a tiered radius structure to be determined by USC and Unidad together, and that USC's local procurement achievement would be monitored and published semi-annually, so that if 15% weren't achieved, a local community expert would be brought in to help oversee
Thank you,
the
ma'am.
program.
Do you happen to have a copy of that study? Could you make that available to the city clerk?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Donlin, Economic Development Coordinator at SAGE. I speak on behalf of the Unidad Coalition today to strongly recommend that Plum include or ensure that this plan creates a detailed, well-structured community monitoring and oversight procedure for all the provisions in the development agreement of the USC plan. Plum should further ensure that the Unidad Coalition and other groups who have experience in monitoring and implementing development agreements are consulted. For the Unidad Coalition, I staff the community oversight and enforcement of 2 development agreements in our area. From this experience, we understand the absolute necessity for 2 important pieces. 1, detailed, timely, and comprehensive reporting of progress on all aspects of the agreement. And 2, an institutionalized community oversight body that has the strength to review progress reports, make recommendations for the improved implementation and enforcement, and engage directly with the developer in the city to ensure the recommendations are incorporated. A plan of this size would quickly fall out of memory and reach of the community if there is not an institutionalized community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, my name is Nona Randwa, and I'm a senior attorney at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. I'm a proud Trojan fighting on for a USC development plan that protects local residents. I'm here today to point out problems with the environmental review process, and we've submitted a letter with more detail. The EIR is inadequate because the specific plan was not released until 8 months after the final EIR and contains significant new information. For instance, the specific plan revealed that there would be over a dozen new alcohol licenses approved. The EIR did not analyze, as it should have, the potential impact to police protection services due to activity from this many new licenses. The EIR found that this project will have significant impacts which cannot be avoided, but the statement of overriding considerations is inadequate. The described contributions of the project to the community and the proposed findings grossly misrepresent the magnitude of the benefits of the project and are not supported by substantial evidence in the record and, in fact, are contradicted by the final EIR.
Thank you. And please submit that to the record. Before you speak, sir, let me call the next group. Hector Marmol. Marcelo Martinez, Juan Alvarado, and Rosario Ordóñez. Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Torres. I am the president of CD Tech, and we are located about 6 blocks away from USC campus. As you've heard from our testimony today as part of Unidad, we've been doing, and for the work that we're doing for the last 2 years, we really are concerned with the negative impacts of this project and how it's going to impact families in this part of South LA. Clearly, we are not against the project in theory or in concept as the way it's, but we are concerned about the way it's currently written, and we are not against USC as well. But we feel this project lacks long-term vision and misses the mark about the types of opportunities it can really provide for local residents. We want to work in partnership with USC academics, students, supporters, and administrators to develop a smarter and transformative plan for the community. We as a community deserve better. The city deserves better, and USC community deserves a better vision and plan. As an institution of higher learning, USC should be interested in developing new models of urban redevelopment practice, school community partnerships, and fostering an environment for their students and faculty to learn from the people in the area that they live in. Jesus Christ, this is quick.
So you got to keep an eye on the clock. Well, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, man.
Thank you very much. You can submit that for the record if you like. Okay, next group of speakers. So, yeah, keep an eye on the clock. That way you can time yourself and get to your main points.
Good afternoon, Council. Hello. Good afternoon, Council members. My name is Hector Marmol. I live at 1754 West 23rd Street. I'm a member of St. Agnes Parish and also 1LA. And the point that I want to make now, today, this afternoon, is that there has been a massive displacement of long-time residents in the area. I urge the Plum Commission, I urge the City of Los Angeles and USC to please make modifications to this specific plan. Thank you very much. You have a good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker, Marcelo Martinez. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcelo Martinez, and I'm a member of St. Agnes Parish and 1LA. I'm also concerned about the displacement of longtime community residents as a result of USC's failure to provide sufficient student housing. I grew up in the neighborhood around USC and St. Agnes, and I've seen firsthand how local residents have been pushed out, how students have moved in, and how rents have increased. Father Bill and other speakers have addressed the need for more student beds. I want to address 2 related issues: the timeline for construction of student beds and the affordability of student housing. We realize the development could provide significant benefits to our community, but those potential benefits will not be realized unless there are specific and timely plans to implement them. The development agreement needs to specify when the new student beds will be built and should require USC to complete the new student beds at the beginning of the project, no later than the completion of the retail and other buildings that are part of the University Village project. These issues of timeline and affordability need to be addressed before this plan is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Mi nombre es Juan Alvarado.
Si me permiten un minuto.
Correcto.
Agradezco su cooperación. Is the mic on? Okay.
Mi nombre es Juan Alvarado.
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Alvarado.
Vivo en el 1219 West Adams Boulevard.
I live at 1219 West Adams Boulevard.
En los últimos 30 años, USC ha hecho muchos improvements adentro de la comunidad.
In the last 30 years, USC has done a lot of improvements in the community.
Pero al mismo tiempo ha empujado a la gente a salirse de la comunidad, especialmente a los de low income.
But at the same time, they've pushed a lot of the residents who have had to leave the community, especially residents that are low income.
Otra cosa, el crecimiento de los estudiantes viviendo alrededor de la comunidad.
One more thing, the increase in the number of students that are living around the university
Trae problemas cuando ellos tienen party toda la noche.
brings with it problems, especially when they have parties that last all night.
Viernes, sábado y domingo.
It happens on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
En muchas ocasiones yo le he hablado a la policía de la universidad
On many occasions, I've had to call the police, the university police,
y la policía de LAPD
and also LAPD,
y nunca aparecen.
and they never show up.
Lo que responden si son estudiantes del USC está bien.
What they respond is, well, if they're USC students, then it's okay.
La pregunta mía a USC es si ellos son responsables de los escándalos que hacen los estudiantes.
My question to USC is the following. Are they going to take responsibility for the big partying and the loud partying that the students have?
Porque los residentes tenemos que dormir e ir a trabajar el siguiente día.
Because the residents, like us, we have to be able to sleep because we have to go to work on the following day.
Yo les recomiendo que tengan en consideración esta cosa.
And I ask you to please keep this in consideration.
Gracias, buenas tardes.
Gracias
Thank
a
you.
usted.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Rosario Ordóñez.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosario Ordóñez, yo vivo en el 1550 de la Woodlawn Avenue y he vivido ahí por 35 años, soy miembro activa de la parroquia de Santa Inés y estoy participando en One LA para obtener más justicia en nuestra comunidad.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosario Ordóñez. I live at 1550 South Woodlawn Avenue. My family has been living in that area for 35 years. I am a member of I'm a member of the Saint Inez Church, and also I participate in activities of 1LA in order to obtain justice for our community.
Estoy de acuerdo con las demandas de One LA y la unidad para cambiar diferentes puntos del plan maestro del USC.
I'm in agreement with 1LA's and Unidas, what they're demanding, so that we can change some key points in USC's master plan.
Yo deseo que USC construya viviendas de bajos recursos para sus alumnos.
I would like for USC to construct low-income residences for its students.
Porque hace 35 años miraba en mi vecindad familias viviendo, ahora en mi vecindad estoy viendo nada más estudiantes, incluso a media cuadra de mi casa es cuando mataron a 2 estudiantes hace poco de la USC.
35 years ago, I used to see a lot of families living around that area of USC, and most recently, I've seen mostly students living around the area. As a matter of fact, I live about 2 blocks away from the place where the 2 USC students were murdered.
Las rentas están subiendo demasiado, las familias están yendo.
Rents are really increasing a lot, and families are moving away.
Quiero decirles que hay muchas personas que han llegado a pedirme que venda mi casa porque mi casa tiene 8 recámaras y me están diciendo que USC está interesada en mi propiedad.
I would like to share with you that a lot of people have approached me asking me if I want to sell the house because my house has 8 bedrooms, and they're telling me that USC is interested in purchasing my home.
Yo quiero indicar a los miembros de este comité que necesitan escuchar las voces de las familias de la comunidad.
I would like to ask the members of this committee to please, you need to listen to the community's voices.
Gracias, señora.
No solamente las del USC, necesitamos que ustedes...
Entiendo, señora. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, señora. Muchas gracias. Okay. Okay, the next stack of cards come from the general comments column. And again, I appreciate your patience. It's close to 5:30, so hang in there, folks. Rahab Mitchell, Sean, I believe it's Simons, Katan Sharma, Concepcion Joel de Ayala, and Erlila Abarca. Come on up. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. The situation of urban growth is critical. I'm representing United Job Creation Council. Gene Franklin is the executive director. More than half of the world's population lives in urban areas. In about a few more decades, 70% of the world's estimated 9 billion people will live in cities. Now, how will we deliver services? How will we be sustainable, effective, and efficient in what we do in promoting improved health, public safety, prosperity for all? I was really a bit surprised that he would say this is our land. I'm from New York University. New York University has put in place a new Center for Urban Science and Progress. They have Washington Square Park, they have the Village, they have a sense of community, but they do have a university and a sense of forward thinking. USC cannot simply say, this is our land, we're going to renovate, we're just doing a little building changing. You have to think about the world's future, about urban growth, and the world is saying that cities will be where life is taking place.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Sean Simons, and I have served as the president of the local neighborhood council for 5 years. I'm speaking about beautification today. We are so close, and we are asking for so little, but there seems to be no true understanding from the university as to who their community is and where they live, as there's no true community plan in these benefits. Why beautify a street and leave 2 blocks of the community in the dust? Why draw new divisional lines? Simply go the extra mile. And I do mean it's only a mile. And unite the community moving forward. The community self-defines itself as west to Western, north to the 10, and south to MLK. We do not oppose this project, but rather the lack of inclusion of the benefits to the actual community. I'd like to submit a letter from the Neighborhood Council, which was circulated to the community as well for the record.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Yeah, hi. My name is Ketan Sharma. I own Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburger Restaurant at SC. We've been operating since 1990, have invested over close to $2 million. We hire locally with 80% of our employees live in surrounding communities. I'm very concerned about losing my business and have not been given any assurance for the university has been allowed to continue in operation. I'm also very concerned about protecting my ability to earn revenue without a drive-through, which currently amounts to 60% of my revenue and provides a safer alternate in the later hours. I'm asking for some type of assurance that I can continue in operations at SC. I would agree with the concept in the next study and request this committee to include a first right of refusal for all of the existing businesses in the developer agreement. I'm also asking for the ability to offer a creative drive-through that would both ethnicity and pedestrianly oriented. A prohibition of a drive-through would loss of income and loss of employees and a safe alternative for customer student when purchasing their food. I have some documents that I'd like to present it to the council.
Please.
And we have an alternate person, Nancy, would speak instead of the person you have called for.
Okay, well, she's speaking for the whole group?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so, great, come on up.
Okay.
So this covers everyone that has a Wendy's card?
Yes, that's correct.
So that means this stack goes significantly smaller. All right. Well, I like that. Go ahead, sir. Please, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy, and I work at the Wendy's on Hoover and 30th Street at the University Village at USC. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our local business concerns. As employees, we are very concerned about losing our jobs when our lease is up as a result of this new project. It would be difficult for us and our family to without a stable job. We are also very concerned about losing our drive-through with the new project because of the fact that it brings most of our customers to our restaurant. We also ask to keep our business successful and to not remove our drive-through to the majority of our customer base.
Okay, one question for you, please.
Does you know if Wendy's has a right of first refusal on the development agreement as well?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We don't know that.
They don't know.
Don't know?
We don't know.
Oh, you don't have one. Don't have right.
We don't have one.
Don't
I
have
think
one.
so, yes. As per my knowledge, we don't have one.
Thank you.
Okay. Muchas gracias a todos por participar y la paciencia. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's see that. Wow, stack shrunk tremendously. Okay, so we have next Isaac Mugadam. Come on up. That's Mughadam. Itzhak, are you here? Okay. Itzhak, Itzhak. Okay. We have someone from the Taste of India, 3333 South Hoover, but no name. All right. AKM, ALAM, Quick Picks. Are you here? Alam? All right. Gwendolyn Forrest. Come on up. Stephanie. Oh, Stephanie, we'll call you towards the end. Is that okay? Because I think we're down to. Is that all the cards? Okay, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Gwendolyn Forrest, and I'm a USC graduate student in public policy. I'm also a resident of Figueroa and 41st. And I'm excited about what this development could bring, but I'm also very concerned and wanted to bring up some of those concerns. And they're very much in line with the proposals of the Unidad Coalition. And I want to say off the bat that I support responsible development, I support job creation, and the amenities that this development might bring. But I really do encourage the committee to incorporate Unidad's proposals. I know that many students, myself included, are particularly concerned about housing and want both more housing for students, but then also don't want to displace local residents and feel like we're in a bit of a bind with that. I certainly feel that as a current resident of South LA. And we are definitely, and I personally am in favor of USC making the $30 million contribution to preserve and create affordable housing rather than the $2 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think that covers everyone in general comments. Did we miss anybody? I keep seeing these folks with these black T-shirts. It says, what does that say? Okay, all right. I was just wondering. Okay, okay, go ahead.
Hello, Council.
I had to ask.
I wasn't going to speak. I'm a USC professor in the School of Cinematic Arts.
Can you give us your name?
My name is Craig Dietrich, and I'm just really emotional about what I've seen today. I've seen a lot of people out for this development, and I don't understand why USC won't budge on something as simple as having a local hire initiative or a local business initiative on what's going to be $1 billion development. So I have a prepared statement here. I don't know if it's relevant, but I just wish that we can, make this place, make this development something that's going to be useful for the community. And I say that as a homeowner from Bonsalo Avenue, 3 blocks from where the development's going to happen. So here's my prepared statement. I would ask that the city direct USC, the neighborhood council, and CD8 to appoint community members to a short-term benefits advisory team that can work together to craft specific needs for the community, as there is no one who knows our area better than the actual neighbors. We know the problem streets. We know the needs of the youth. We know the little lifts that can make the world a difference. So USC, why aren't you doing that?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
very much. Okay. We do have 2 speakers from the respective council offices, and would you like to come up and read your statement? And we have with us Stephanie, and she's with the Councilmember Perry's office, and with us Privy Doshi from Councilmember Parks. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Magnian. I'm here representing Councilwoman Perry. USC has been a strong partner to the community and the city as a whole, and this project will bring tremendous benefits to the neighborhood, but will also have impacts which need to be mitigated. And with that in mind, the Councilwoman has several suggestions to enhance the development agreement. We offer the following for consideration, which are outlined in greater detail in the letter that she submitted this afternoon. The primary issue for Councilwoman Perry, as well as the community, is the preservation and the development of affordable housing. She believes that USC's contribution should be increased to $20 million and required prior to any permit issued within sub-areas 1, 2, or 3. With regards to USC student housing, there is a large unmet need for university-provided student housing. As approved by CPC, the development agreement requires USC to build 1,000 net new beds in the first phase of this project that will equate to a total of 2,100 student beds. The specific plan allows USC to build 5,400 new beds over the life of the development agreement, and we would like the planning department to be instructed to require USC to build the 5,400 beds over the lifetime of the development agreement. With regards to Fire Station 15, currently the development agreement lists the value of the new fire station at $10 million. The CLA is negotiating with the university on an MOU for the land swap and build out of a new Prop F fire station. The dollar amount associated with this development should be removed, and instead the DA should reflect language presented in the final MOU between the city and the university. A finalized MOU signed by both parties should be completed before the city's approval and specific plan and development agreement. With regards to development assistance, the demolition of the University Village will displace several businesses, and we would like those tenants to be provided with relocation assistance and be given right of first refusal upon the completion of the University Village. And with regards to the project labor agreement, USC should complete and finalize the PLA in advance of any permits being issued for the project. The PLA should include a provision for 30% local hire. This will ensure that local residents from the highest areas of unemployment are provided with an opportunity to gain employment opportunities. And for this purpose, local hire should be considered within the boundary of the Nexus study. Contract administration should work with USC and labor representatives to develop the agreement. And the agreement should include language that allows for permanent employment through the trades once the project is completed. And finally, with regards to local hire, USC should commit to hiring 30% of new employees for the permanent retail jobs within Sub-Area 3 from the Nexus study boundary and work with the workforce centers and local job training programs at Job Corps and local community colleges and job readiness programs to fulfill this requirement. And as I stated, this goes into further detail with the letter the Councilwoman provided you, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council members. Purvi Doshi with Councilmember Park's office. For the past decade, the USC campus and the surrounding community have been located in Council District 8, represented by Councilmember Parks. As an alumni and Trojan fan, Councilmember Parks has always recognized the positive contributions USC has made to the community and the city as a whole. He understands and appreciates that USC is a world-class educational institution, is one of the largest employers in the city, and brings educational opportunities and programs to the community through their scholarships and their Family of School program, and they have enhanced the area with their beautiful buildings and infrastructure improvements. Since he came into office, he has been one of USC's biggest supporters with their entitlements for on- and off-campus projects, special events, letters of support for grant opportunities, among many other things. But he has also, as a representative of this area, seen how the community has changed because of USC's growth and expansion. He has seen the North University Park neighborhood change from a thriving community of historic and stately single-family homes to a community that has over-concentration of parked cars, estates that have been turned into dormitories, and increasing rents that the local community cannot afford because developers and homeowners want to make money off of the student population that is not being properly housed. Though redistricting has removed the main campus and proposed new development outside of CD8, the council member still represents the community that has been the most impacted by USC's growth. The specific plan is an opportunity for USC to expand over the next 20 years. And with that expansion, they need to mitigate and account for the effects this expansion has on the surrounding community through the development agreement and community benefits package. The council member has submitted a joint letter with Councilwoman Perry that offers suggestions and further points of negotiation to the DA. I'm just going to go over the main points, but you have the letter in front of you for reference. Affordable housing. USC's contribution to affordable housing should be no less than $20 million. This number is based on information from community groups and some of the nation's top housing specialists, as well as comparables to other universities throughout the country. Another means of stabilizing the impacted communities is to ensure that USC build the 5,400 beds, student beds, that the specific plan allows. It is because of a lack of affordable student housing that these neighboring communities have been encroached upon. Building more beds will help alleviate this pressure on the community. Streetscape improvements and bike lanes. Improvements along Jefferson should begin at Western Avenue and continue east to Hope. These improvements should also continue north on Hoover and Vermont from Jefferson to the 10 freeway. These are the major east, west, and north-south corridors that connect the most impacted communities to the new development. Supplemental environmental clearances are needed for these improvements, so USC should be responsible for completing these clearances. Local hire. The council member is extremely pleased that the university is entering into a PLA with the building trade so that there is a mechanism in place to ensure construction jobs for LA residents. Local hire should also be directed towards the permanent retail opportunities at the new project. There should be a minimum of 30% local hire for local non-student residents for the new University Village project. It is the council member's hope that the dialogue moving forward will include these suggestions and those listed in the letter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, colleagues, any questions for any of the staff? And I'd like to call planning in the housing department because it seems like the crux of a lot of the issues that have arisen do evolve around those two main disciplines. I'd like to come on up, both planning and housing. Colleagues, I do have a set of questions, but I want to make sure I address your concerns or your observations and questions if you have any. And if you do, please move forward and let's share them. But I do have a list of questions, so please.
We'll have them go first.
Well, why don't you guys ask the questions?
Well, what I was hoping, if I could, the chair, I was hoping to hear the applicant respond to all the allegations and concerns.
That's a great idea.
Since we went
Thank you,
to
Mitch,
the supporters and then the opponents, and then if you could address
any comments
all
you'd
the
like to
concerns
make as a result of
and
the
comments
conversations,
all the things that were brought up.
before we get into our questions.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. There was a fair amount of discussion today about displacement. And I said it in my opening comments, and I will say it again, and I will say it again and again. There's no displacement on this project. None. Not one person in the audience is going to lose their home because of this project. And that's in part because we're not buying any land. We own the land right now. We really do. There's been a lot of talk today about what other universities have done. There's mention to Harvard, which I know well, Yale, and Columbia. Yet those situations, again, were dramatically different than this situation. Those universities, in the Columbia case, they acquired the land through eminent domain, and it was a part of the project that they were seeking approval of. We're not pursuing eminent domain here. We're just remodeling our existing property. In the Yale, and by the way, also in the Yale situation, they were again expanding well beyond the university's current footprint. They were going to build 2 new colleges. So they were in fact going to be displacing people. We're not displacing anyone. Similarly, in the Harvard situation, they acquired a huge amount of land, not in Cambridge, but in a small suburb called Alston. And as a result of those acquisitions, they were displacing people. Again, there's no displacement in this situation. There's also been, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are going to be doing the opposite of displacement. We're going to be moving students from the neighborhood onto campus and freeing those homes up. And it's not ours numbers, it's the ER's number that says 900 beds are being freed up. There's also been talk about local hire here. Our development agreement provides for a goal of 30% local hire. We support local hire. Robbie Hunter, who I think is, if he's still here, if Robbie's still here, Robbie can talk about the kind of training that's going to take place. We want to make sure the community has an opportunity to take advantage of these jobs. What's interesting to me about the comments, no one opposes this project. No one's saying they don't want the shopping or the on-campus housing or the restaurants or the grocery store, all the things that we're going to be doing. So it really is a question of the development agreement. And we think the development agreement we put forth is reasonable under the circumstances. We, of course, we're open to working through and responding. If you think about the Harvard situation, it was $20 million that was given. We're going to give 8. That $8 million in the current, as recommended by the planning department, is a lump sum payment. That $20 million payment was to 2 cities, not one. Half of it, $10 million, went to Boston, and $10 million went to Cambridge over a 20-year period. So I'd argue that the $8 million that's on the table right now is dramatically better than the $20 million that was required in the Harvard deal. Similarly, in the Columbia deal, as inanalogous as it was over, I believe, a 16-year period. So we think, while we're open to discussions, we think the $8 million recommended by the planning department and the CPC is not an unreasonable number.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councilman? Okay, no questions. Any other questions?
Just a statement, I think, based on what I heard from what you just spelled out as well, and what we heard in the arguments. And I think, number one, I think you're right. I didn't hear anybody come up here and say, we don't want this project. They're concerned about not perhaps even the impacts, because it didn't sound directly like anyone would be displaced from what's being proposed right now. However, there has been, from what the arguments have been made, a cumulative displacement because of the supply and demand of student housing over the years of success of the university. And that has caused the scenario versus what you're proposing now. And so my question is, number one, is with the document that was just proposed, you'd said $8 million, and at one point, was that number, I believe, was $2 million, and now when did that change?
It started off as $2 million. There was a recommendation, I believe, by the local city council folks of $6 million, and the planning commission recommended $8 million. And we're not opposing the $8 million, in part because of some of the things you've talked about, but the historical issues. But I still want to go back to the impact of this, the specific plan itself. There is no displacement whatsoever as a result of this plan.
And that's what's before us, is this plan.
Just this plan.
And you're addressing at least some of the issues and putting up some of the funds to address the historic issues, not as an impact from this plan, but as an impact to your success, if you will.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Sayles, I wanted to first thank you for your cooperation. It's been a long road. The team that you have there has been working with the community and the departments throughout these years. And the community has also been very diligent in expressing their concerns. To me, it's trying to reach that balancing point in understanding what these impacts truly mean. And as said throughout this meeting, there's a huge emotional factor here, but I also think that there is a sense of balance I think we can strive for. And to do that, I'm not prepared to give directives today or suggest directives to my colleagues in terms of final conclusions, especially in light of the letter we received, I believe, yesterday, the response in terms of recommended changes that you have submitted. That in of itself will promote us to essentially go into a period by which we need to digest what you're recommending as an institution, but also to give us the opportunity to offer a clear perspective as to what are these inconsistencies. You spoke of the nuances of the different universities you brought up. I strongly believe that we should have a better sense of what that means from project to project, from location to location, and give us a better way to gauge what this specific plan will do to the local community and how we behave as a city in embracing the opportunity USC is offering, but also to look at the opportunity that the communities could essentially understand. And I need a better understanding of these impacts. So I don't have any more questions for you, Mr. Sells, but I just want to take the opportunity to let you know where I'm coming from. I want to make this transparent. I want to make this process so that everyone that did express an opinion in the respective roles will understand why we're taking the next steps. So that being said, any other comments from my colleagues? Because I think you can go through a set of questions to the departments.
Just one other statement on that is on the letter that you'd submitted, besides the change from and I'm not sure if that just occurred on the letter or prior to that, were there other significant changes or was this simply highlighting the community benefit packages and what has occurred over time? Because this alludes to a 9-year planning period to bring us to where we're at today. From everything I've heard, I typically and will always defer to the chair. He's the chair of the committee. But from where I'm at today, I'm ready to move forward, and I support everything that was stated. I do agree with whatever could be done to look at some of the historical issues in the housing, and I think you've made a tremendous effort. I think you ought to be applauded as well for reaching out to the community and working so much to improve the benefit package. But my question is there anything specific in this letter that is new?
No.
As of the 20th, or is this just simply highlighting some of those benefits once again?
Yes, and there's some changes we'd like to the planning department's recommendation that we'd like included. They relate to design changes and other things like that. But essentially, our preference, of course, would be to move forward if it's the will of the group. And I think we've heard from the chairman. That's
to be very clear, though, and I want to make sure I understand his question, is in speaking to the planning department, my understanding is that that letter does introduce something different than what the commission approved.
Oh, it does. It makes recommendations. Yes, it does.
Correct. So
Yes.
that is new.
Okay, yes.
See, so I want to, for
Yes.
the sake of clarity.
So the answer is yes.
Okay, because I don't want to hold this back either.
No.
That's not my intention. But in light of the new request and
Yes.
different impacts, the planning department has to make that assessment.
That's a fair point. I understand. Yes.
Okay.
So when would we see this back, more or less?
How soon
Well-
can the planning department?
Well, I've asked them, what will it take? And they also need to fold in the city attorney's office because they have to do their due diligence in the review process. The housing department has to do their due diligence, as well as Public Works, given what they said today in terms of full impacts of cost when it comes to the infrastructure. So I'm pushing hard to get this done as quickly as possible. The date that surfaces, and planning department, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bell, that we're shooting for the month of October. What date are we looking at, Mr. Bell?
I think that certainly what we heard today is that the scale and complexity of this project, biggest in South Los Angeles, the issues that have been raised, both in terms of interdepartmental coordination, the CEQA findings, which were preliminarily approved by the commission. We need final findings, integration of the city attorney's office into this. We would need additional time, I think, to do a report back that would respond to these issues, address the council office joint letter from CDs 8 and 9, as well as the letter that we received from USC this morning. To put that all together, we would request a report back into November, and that would allow us to also prepare a letter that would also be available for public review in advance of a hearing. Okay. So we would recommend a plum hearing date of the 13th with a release of November, and with a release of joint reports from Housing Department, and then also the other departments that are involved to come together and to respond to all these different directions and issues.
Okay. Yes.
Can I just respond to that, Chairman? I'm Ms. Semkin, representing USC. The specific plan amendments that or modifications that we have requested in our letter have all been reviewed with the Planning Department. They are in concurrence with the majority of them, all of them except for one. They're going to be neutral on that matter. So these aren't major amendments to a specific plan that either require additional environmental review or need additional discussion. We had a meeting with them. We went through all of that list before we brought it to your attention. Secondly, on the development agreement, those are additions to development agreement that we're responding to the requests that have been made. For example, we are going to request that we guarantee 1,200 beds as a part of Phase 1 instead of 1,000, which was what the Planning Department and CPC had recommended. And so we've asked for other changes. I don't think any of those modifications should require that an additional month or a month and a half be required to bring that back. The part that is holding it up is that the city attorney still has to review and sign off on the CEQA findings. That is the one time element that we do have.
Okay. Now, I have yet to ask my question to the departments, so I need to go through that. But in the context of this conversation, I just want to make sure that we're all trying to get on the same page here.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, and
Yes.
since I asked that question, I think that just listening to some of the concerns and issues and things that need to get fixed, I understand that our planning department is short on staffing, but at the same time, I don't see how this could wait to November, whether we're supportive of this or not. Part of the thing we're trying to do as a city is to really focus on and get people's a really good sense of how these procedures take place. And I think that to wait till November is not only bad for this project, but any project that comes before us, when some of the issues could be resolved within a month at the most. I mean, but I don't know. I know planning staff is short-staffed.
Let's bring the planning and housing in front. Thank you, Mr. Sells. Let's bring the staff up. And I'm going to ask these questions because maybe it's trying to clarity for the decision you have to make, because these are profound impacts both to USC and the community. So when we look at the issue of information regarding other universities nationwide, in terms of their contribution to housing and affordable housing, does the planning department or the housing department have a handle on what those details are in terms of impacts and how we begin to understand the commitments made both by the universities and the community and the city? Do we have that information available to us?
Yeah, Rogelio Flores, Planning Department. We have heard several different numbers and figures thrown around today from several different national universities. However, I mean, we haven't studied, like a national benchmark to compare the whether the universities that were mentioned are actually comparable or not, let alone whether their development agreement mechanisms are comparable and therefore relevant perhaps to the discussion. So if it is the will of this committee for the planning department, jointly with the housing department, to look at other example universities for the purposes of reference.
But to echo Mr. Sale's observations, we should also understand what the unique elements were for each case and what drove those numbers. I mean, that's the kind of assessment analysis we need. And do you have the ability to bring that back on a quick turnaround?
Yes, I mean, I believe, based on not only that particular request, but the package of issues that I think seem to remain unresolved, based both on CD8 and CD9 that have submitted the letters, the changes that USC has requested, as well as this kind of research request, we do believe that we would need a number of weeks to turn around a report, particularly I think also because we would want to ensure there's public access to it in advance of the Plum meeting.
Okay, let me ask you this. When you look at the issue of student populations impact in terms of percentages, do we have information that speaks to both graduate and undergrad in terms of what percentage USC houses?
Yes, that information was in the Nexus study, which was received and filed. It's in the Nexus study document. It's publicly accessible. We would be able to summarize that information, not today, not at this point right now. But
Would you get that information, and can you compare it to other key universities in the country to look at what is being housed and what isn't being housed in terms of percentages?
We could do that as a report back.
Okay, all right. Colleagues, if you just allow me to go through these questions, there's a lot of other issues here that I still have and I want to address, and I'm hoping it gives us a better context to make these recommendations, decisions. But looking at the TOD planning and its close proximity to USC, the specific plan and the Nexus study, does the specific plan and development agreement address encouraging housing at different income levels, including affordable housing within the TODs? Can the housing or planning answer that?
Yeah, currently whether affordable housing specifically within TOD geographic areas is addressed directly in the development agreement, that is not the case. So again, that would be a matter of a report back. We would need to go back and look at the South LA Community Plan and talk with that planner about where they're at on that particular issue and with our transit-oriented district unit.
And to understand both the level of influence that any agreement would have, do we have an understanding of, given everything that's been funded by the Housing Department, by the CRA, by the Affordable Trust Fund, how much has been invested by the city in constructing new affordable housing units since 2000, when the Nexus study, in the Nexus study area?
We had initially reviewed the trust fund investments since 2003, but that did not include CRA or any other public subsidy. So we would have to do a review of those funding assistance from the CRA, and right now, as you all know, we're in the process of receiving assets from the CRA. Those are in the process of being transferred. So we would need time to really assess what the memorandum of understanding provided to that specific area, in addition to the 20% of tax increment that may have been utilized around the project areas around USC.
Okay.
So we would need additional time, and we would need to work with our own staff to develop that analysis.
Okay, and within the documents that have been produced or need to be produced, has there been a focus on language that essentially begins to focus on timely and cohesive improvements for the public works, for BOE? Do we have triggering mechanisms that ensures that these improvements will be made within the context of all the documents you've produced?
Well, we have submitted for the public record today some suggested language for the specific plan, but this is more of a placeholder at this juncture, because we do need some time to coordinate with our colleagues in the Bureau of Engineering and at Department of Building and Safety, and with the city attorney, to develop some mechanisms for the implementation of those improvements. So we have some draft language today, but it's a placeholder at this point.
But has BOE actually reviewed plans? Have they looked at all the different infrastructural, because I heard some great goals in terms of adding lights and improving corridors. Has BOE even looked at any plans? Do they have any idea as to what is going to be needed?
At this point in time, we are working off of a very conceptual idea here. We don't have a plan that's ready.
But the bottom line, BOE has not seen any real drawings that speaks to these improvements or dates that, or language that enforces that.
Not at this point. They've yet to see plans.
Is that typical at this stage on a project to this scope and size?
Typically, on a zone change ordinance, there would be conditions already included in the determination by the Planning Commission for street improvements. So by the time the ordinance comes before Plum and City Council, conditions will have already been placed on the project for those street improvements. We don't have those conditions right now. Those will come at a later time.
Okay. Well, I've got another page of questions. I'm not going to put them on the table now, but the issues that I think are salient, I brought out. It's already 5 minutes past 6. I do have instructions, but I want to make sure my colleagues have the time to speak, or do you have any other observations?
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to confirm that Rogelio mentioned that the additional time he needs is a matter of weeks, not months. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Well, I mean, I think when we look at the package, at all the different report back items that we've reviewed, the November 13th date that our deputy director mentioned seems appropriate for the number of issues that we need to look into and report back upon.
Well, and if I could address that, though, and it sounds to me, I mean, we're talking about reports that are some critically important and some just are interesting facts to be taken into consideration, with all due respect. The ones that are critically important, I would imagine USC is either put forth or paying for the staff time in a project of this size and scope. And we're also talking about putting 12,000 people back to work. It's not, in putting things back into context of what was argued today, again, it's not this specific project, but the totality of the success of USC that's displaced folks, and that's really been what the issue's been. That needs to be vetted and studied. There's absolutely no question on that. I think the November date is somewhat unreasonable. I think there should be things done to move this along faster. It's been, as it was stated, 9 years and to coming to this point. So the question becomes, how quickly can the critical components of what needs to be done or what's being suggested come. In fact, I was going to make a suggestion that we go ahead, and my first thought in hearing all this was to move it to council with no recommendation and have these reports come back to council if at some point things aren't satisfied or aren't complete, because then this puts the onus and the pressure on not only the members of that district but everybody to work together quicker and doesn't hinge it on a date. But if that isn't accomplished or not satisfied at council, it's very easy at that point to make the recommendation to council to send it back to Plum.
Well, and I would understand your point of view, Councilmember, but I can share with you that there were periods, and again, I'm doing this with the best attitude and been trying to be positive here, but there was a time when the respective council members 3 years ago, if not 4 years ago, were asking for feedback on the Nexus study, on the community development agreement, and we didn't get feedback for about a year and a half. And I will show you the letters that we wrote to USC. And we just did not get the feedback. And if we did, it was feedback that did not truly focus on what we were looking for. And now that there's a sense of urgency, I think it's fair to have the departments do their analysis at a pace that does speak to the urgency and the impact that the community will be feeling in this area, as well as giving USC its fair assessment of what it sees as a priority. And so I wanted to maintain this balance. I didn't want to go there, but there is this notion of historic and experience that I need to put on the table for the sake of again, understanding how we got here. I want to support USC because I believe in those jobs. I believe in its construction, I believe in its improvements, but I also think it is necessary to be very thorough as to how we explain the impacts of the communities and how we establish that nexus and have a deliberative process that allows us to answer these questions, because I would like to have answers to the questions that I'm providing as chair of this committee, and I think it would behoove the whole council to understand so they can take the necessary votes it needs to take to move this project forward. There's a couple more questions I have, but do you have anything else you want to add?
Okay.
In terms of the bicycle program, is the amount provided of $100,000 enough to implement the bike lane, and will a supplemental ER be required? So is anyone here from the bike, from DOT here?
Michelle Mowry spoke today. She is the representative from DOT. She manages the bike programs and bike plan implementation. According to her testimony today, $50,000 for each bicycle lane segment would not be enough to include the additional analysis that would be needed to effectuate those segments. So I'm just relaying what we heard today from Michelle.
Well, let me go through the instructions so that way we can try to be as comprehensive as possible to move this project along. If the Department of City Planning, and I'm folding in a lot of the issues that were raised by the respective council members in their letters, Department of City Planning, with the assistance of the LHD, conduct research nationwide on urban universities over at least 10 years comparable to USC in scale and similarly placed to identify the following. And you can look at, they mentioned Columbia, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, University of Chicago. You get a pretty good range there of types of environments. But 1A would be the percentage of the student population, both undergraduate and graduate, housed by these respective universities as compared to USC. 1B, review community benefit packages and development agreements for these respective universities to identify, and I'll give you a copy of this so I'll make sure you don't, to identify the contribution amounts set aside to address affordable housing impacts. 2, Department of City Planning, with the assistance of the Housing Department, report back on how to ensure USC constructs the 5,400 student beds within the 20 years period of the development agreement, including a minimum of 1,200 Net new beds in Phase 1 at Sub-Area 3. 3, Los Angeles Housing Department, with the assistance of the Department of City Planning, to report back on how a minimum range of 20 million to 40 million will help address USC specific plans' impacts on affordable housing that considers the following. A, the various needs, demographic data of the immediate local residents within the Nexus study area, raised in additional housing analysis by planning and the Housing Department for the Nexus study. B, city's significant investment through the Housing Department's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Housing Department CRA Cooperation Agreement in affordable housing since 2000. Let's see, the approximate 400 to 500 units of affordable housing restrictions from CRA due to expire by 2015. A subset of the 1,299 affordable housing units restrictions due to expire in the next 5 years. So we can get the expiration of units that will occur in the next, in those periods of time would help us understand the context of what the conditions are in that area. Assess the Housing Department's cost estimate of $102,000 per housing unit. D, the percentage demand for USC student housing versus the percentage of students housed by the university. Unmet need for student housing. Per CPC action, the minimum of 1,000 net new units required of USC to construct in the Phase 1 of the period of the 20 years in development agreement. Report back on the Housing Department staff funding administration costs. F, citywide targeted efforts to encourage affordable housing within transit-oriented districts, TODs. And the feasibility of funding, the feasibility of funding a housing legal clinic that would serve in a targeted manner the Nexus study area to prevent housing discrimination, illegal evictions, for example. Now, these are requests. This is analysis. It doesn't mean we're going to move on them, but it gives us a body of information that allows us to understand the impacts. Support the while the previous instructions folded in District 8 and 9's instructions, so we want to make sure that's folded in.
Mr. Chair, so the letter that we received from 8 and 9, what does it mean to fold in?
In other words, they have requests that they submitted in their letters.
Mm-hmm.
So we make that part of the instructions to study and report back.
To report back on.
Right. Instruct planning to report back on with the department's review of the USC submitted changes in a letter dated August 20th. So that goes back to that letter that was submitted. Instruct CDD and planning and other entities that pertain to CD8 that was mentioned in the CD8, CD9 letter dated August 21 on the mechanics to ensure local hiring program that commits to the hiring of 30% of new employees for the permanent retail jobs within sub-area 3 within the Nexus study area. Again, focused on the CD8 and 9's letter to report back on instructing CDD and planning in implementing a small business assistance program related to their concerns in their letter, and the first right of refusal. We can report back, have planning and DOT and BOE with cooperation of USC in submitting needed materials to get an estimate cost for street improvements and the bike lane. So I wanted to nail down that which seemed to be in the gray area, report back on that letter, and give us the needed information to move this project along. Okay? Is that enough for report backs?
Well, Rogelio Flores Planning, I just wanted to also remind this committee that in our overview presentation, we did identify 5 other flags that Plum, that we wanted to ensure that Plum was aware of. One was the additional public benefits that had previously been proposed by USC and introduced by USC at CPC, which was, and planning, CPC inadvertently omitted a couple of items out of that decision. The second flag we had for you was the fire station issue. That we have a conflict in numbers. We don't know if you want to report back on that.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
When you say you have a conflict in numbers, you mean the building costs?
Correct. The City Planning Commission determination, I believe, stated that the total cost for delivery of the fire station would be $10 million. And currently, an MOU, a draft MOU, has been, I believe, filed with the CLA, and the MOU states the total cost would be $10,155,000. So right now, the city would be on the hook for that difference. Based on the way the development agreement is currently written. So we're not certain whether you would want us to go back and reconcile the numbers.
Roberto?
Yeah, Councilman, I spoke with the staff in the CLA's office working on the MOU, and in agreement with CD 8 and 9, there's a preference from city staff that is negotiating the MOU that there not be any reference to a dollar amount as far as the fire station. And the other issue is that the MOU is ongoing, and the city family is waiting to hear back from the university. And the other main point that they wanted me to emphasize is that USC has agreed that the cost of the fire station will be entirely borne by the university and not the city.
So that's not an issue anymore?
Excuse me?
It's not an issue anymore? That's what you're saying?
Well, the issue of the cost, I guess they're negotiating as part of the MOU, but as far as the amounts that it will cost, the preference from the city family is that not be disclosed right now.
But it is actually an issue in the sense that traditionally all of our development agreements have been costed out. So if we depart from that past practice and not have a dollar amount for each line item in the development agreement, we would need to consult with the city attorney in terms of whether the city council would want to enter a DA that did not have specific dollar amounts attached to them. So that would be something that we would need to consult with our attorney, who's the expert on development agreements.
Anything else?
I just want to make sure that whatever conversation our CLA brought up, that our planning department's a part of that as well, because it seems like there was some of the conversation going on that maybe you weren't aware of, or you were aware of those conversations. Well, Roberto just mentioned that there's a certain way that the city attorney or that you're directing and you don't want a specific dollar amount, et cetera. You're part of those conversations.
We were, copied across emails between the CLA and council offices. However, the majority of these discussions happened well after the CPC meeting on May 10th. And so the CPC's action has some incomplete information, if you will. And so if there's a departure from the CPC action, then the DA would have to be updated accordingly. So that's what we're doing today, is we're just alerting you to the fact that some of these negotiations and discussions happened after the CPC meeting, and the development agreement as an ordinance may have to be updated to reflect those changes.
And the MOU, Councilman, has not been finalized, so it's an ongoing process.
We also wanted to draw your attention to another line item in the development agreement which needs some clarification, and that is the alcohol buyout program, where USC has agreed to a good faith effort to purchase 4 alcohol licenses from within a boundary of the specific plan area. The City Planning Commission added a provision whereby if the university, after a good faith effort, is unable to purchase alcohol licenses, then an amount equal to the fair market value of those alcohol licenses will be redirected to the planning department for our revocations unit, so that we can continue to process these revocations cases of problematic alcohol establishments. So that was a provision that was added by the CPC. The issue is that we don't have a fair market value estimate at this point for that amount. So there's some incomplete information on that line item in the development agreement. And finally, we wanted to highlight, we did meet with the Bureau of Engineering on the Vermont Street median. We've already touched on this. That has been determined to be infeasible, physically infeasible at this point. And so we would need some direction from the committee on how to address this issue now that.
But that could be part of the report backs. You can look at that particular stretch and come back with language that would address that concern. And you can work with USC and you can work with the Bureau and finalize. Again, that's the intent of these report backs, is to deal with these loops that have yet to be closed. These other concerns that have arisen allows me a better understanding of what these impacts mean. And that's why I'm speaking of ranges of dollars amount. I'm looking at issues that we need to address. And that's will be part of the report back. That'll be part of the decision-making process. I'm doing this very transparently so everyone understands what's in front of us.
Yes, and just adding on to what Michelle said, several of these items, particularly the implementation triggers to ensure that many of the infrastructure improvements can be actually delivered. The city's teeth we need to implement the actual implementation triggers. And again, that is going to involve discussions with Public Works, BOE, BSS, Bureau of Street Lighting, Urban Forestry, Building and Safety, and then LADOT for the bike lanes and so forth. So again, it is going to require a level of coordination. And that is above and beyond the housing-related items that you've already mentioned, which are going to require a great deal of coordination with the housing department.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's get an update. It's now August. Let's get an update in mid-September to see how we're moving along. And if we can push this and get all the help we can get from all the different parties that are involved, let's create that sense of urgency, because this has been almost 9 years in the making. I've been involved with this thing more intimately for the past 3 years, so I know what I've been through in this process. So I want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I want to get this done. So we can get an update in mid-September. And if we don't have to go to the October or the November dates, then we don't. But let's see how far we can get. But I do know that 40% of our staff is gone. We've got some major policy issues in front of us in this council. The sign ordinances, I won't even begin to give you the list. So there's a lot happening in the planning department, let alone the rest of the departments, as well as the city attorney's office. So are the instructions fairly clear?
I just had a clarification that we think is necessary for the benchmarking study against national universities. You mentioned 4 specific universities, and we just want to make sure that we're as focused as possible on the study to ensure that we can get it done as quickly as possible.
If I can make a recommendation on that as well, since we have a university that may have some students willing to help out on some of these studies, perhaps they can offer up some of their time in providing some of those studies as well. And so if there's anything, it looks like we've got some willing participants nodding over here saying, some students that might have, and some professors and experts in the field that might help.
I think we said University of Chicago. I think it was Pittsburgh.
You mentioned University of Pennsylvania, Chicago, Harvard, and Columbia.
At least I think it gives us at least an array.
Okay.
In different contexts in terms of how these universities were able to engage and receive their consensus, get their consensus based on all the tensions that exist.
And if I could extend that invitation to say, if there's any other studies that were requested, if the university could help and provide some of that
Are you going to teach over there?
Well, and then if you have a professor position opening, no. But that might be an opportunity to not only help students and the university in the partnership with the city, but to expedite it as well.
So we'll shoot for an update on September 18th on how you're doing on the report backs.
Just Faisal Roble for the record. In light of the extensive guidelines that we received to our instructions, I just want to caution the committee that we usually do land use planning. Some of the recommendations and instructions could go into more of a statistical data analysis. So what we would probably doing is paraphrase you studies that are out there as opposed to getting more into the details of the data analysis and statistical analysis. So we will probably give you a synopsis of studies that are out there in the interest of time. And
whatever gives us a better sense of how to establish policy that addresses the needs of USC and as much as the needs of the community. And that's what we're seeking. Okay?
Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to add that whether it's USC or some other person applying for some approvals from the city, one of the things I often hear is that there's so much uncertainty through the process. And this would be an interesting case study to see in these last 9 years whether what hoops we're making people jump through, whether it's good or bad. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with the project before, it's just a general comment. We as a city got to be more cognizant of what different changes of direction we give to applicants and whether we are at the right forum presenting the type of information for decision makers to make a decision. And that's just something that we have to be aware of, particularly when you see a project of the magnitude of this size. USC wants to provide a service to the city, whether good or bad, how it's behaved in the past or not is not the issue. The issue is that a project of the magnitude of this size, I think people would expect more certainty through each process, and it seems like we could be going in a lot of different directions with new questions raised. I know you have different bodies that you have to go through, the City Planning Commission, Plum, you have council districts you have to deal with, but something that I keep hearing out there is that we just need more certainty. You just got to tell them, be more aware of what the risks are at each level, and I know it's a political process, but I think we could do a better job of confining what exactly are the issues at each step of the way. We need to improve on that.
And I completely agree with you, but I also see that both the private sector and government and the nonprofit sector have to be in a position where they could be exchanging information. It's sometimes a reciprocation of information, and if one entity chooses to work or not, it impacts the final goal. So I appreciate what you're saying. After 11 years in this chair, I'm trying my best to make this as clear as possible without any surprises. But the impacts are the impacts, and they are complicated. So with that being said, anything else?
I think we just had a point of clarification with respect to the letters submitted by CDs 8 and 9. Is our directive to report back with recommendations on these issues? Okay,
Yes.
we just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes. Okay. Anything else, City Attorney?
I think you've covered it all.
All right. Okay, so that instructions have been made. This item is closed. Public comment, I said had been closed, but given the array of issues that arose, I think we might be forced to open it up again.
Well, that's right, and you just need to continue to a date certain.
Okay, so September 18th will be the next targeted date for an update on how we're doing on report backs, just to make sure we're pushing this along. So that concludes that item. We have one card on general comments. Levi Kingston, are you still here, Levi? Okay, seeing no Levi Kingston, this meeting is adjourned.